Chapter 434. Zhou felt that as a man, there was no need to waste time on trivial matters. However, once he decided to do something, he had to be ruthless. He had to kill his enemy the moment he attacked. If he couldn't kill him, he had to make him feel pain and fear. From Zhou's point of view, cursing, saying some harsh words, or smashing something to slap someone was meaningless. Even if he captured 2 people from the bureau and killed them, even if they were branch ministers, it wasn't a big deal to the bureau. They could just replace someone else as the branch minister. Zhou didn't have the strength to storm into the bureau's lair and destroy it. An arrogant person like Jack had been imprisoned by the bureau for 28 years. After he was released, he didn't immediately seek revenge on the bureau. Instead, he followed orders to capture Zhou. This showed how terrifying the bureau was. Zhou studied it for a long time before a piece of news caught his attention. The bureau had great authority, but it was different from the typical wealthy families or families. They were only a functional department of the Federation and received a salary from the Federation. Although it was easy for a department like the bureau to earn money, Shin-Yuchi strictly forbade his subordinates from extorting money. He hadn't heard of any misdeeds in this regard. In this aspect, Zhou was rather impressed by Shin-Yuchi. To be able to control such a department to such an extent wasn't something that anyone could do. However, relying on the Federation's funding was clearly insufficient for the Bureau's operations. There were 2 main sources of income for the Bureau. One was the sponsorship of the various consortiums, and the other was a primordial crystal mine. According to the information Sheng had given him, more than 60% of the Bureau's income came from this primordial crystal mine. Zhou wasn't unfamiliar with primordial crystal mines. There were quite a number of them in the Bat Cave. As he couldn't take them out, Zhou hadn't paid much attention to them. The main reason he went to the Bat Cave was to hunt poison bats. However, the dungeons hadn't been refreshed recently. The poison bats inside had long been killed by Zhou, so he hadn't gone to the Bat Cave again. However, after reading the information on the primordial crystal mine, Zhou made a pleasant discovery. The effects of primordial crystals were similar to primordial gold. They could be used to create primordial crystal weapons, and they could even be used to create laser beams. Such laser beams were lethal to dimensional creatures. The value of primordial crystals was higher than primordial gold, but the reserves of primordial crystals were typically not as high as primordial gold. The few primordial crystal mines that had been discovered only produced a few tons a year. Zhou estimated that the annual production of a primordial crystal mine was about the same as the primordial crystals in the Bat Cave. The Bureau's primordial crystal mine was a rich mine. It had been mined for several years, but the amount of primordial crystals it produced was still very stable. It would probably find a mine for another decade or 2. As the primordial crystal mine was tightly protected, there was only a little information. There was no specific information on the production or reserves, but it was definitely a lot. Every time the Bureau needed money, they would use a large number of primordial crystals. What truly interested Zhou was for primordial Zhou, that he won for him to 4 for 4. That 4 to 4 for him. Without any hesitation, he took out his phone and switched to the Zhuolu Instance Dungeon. Soon, he arrived at the Poison Bat Cave. Looking at the star-like primordial crystal mine in the cave, Zhou summoned Tyrant Behemoth. When the 3 to 4 meter tall Tyrant Behemoth saw the primordial crystal ores, its eyes lit up. It let out a roar and charged forward. It grabbed a rock wall and bit down. Zhou was dumbfounded as he watched Tyrant Behemoth chew the rocks and primordial crystal ores like candy. However, Tyrant Behemoth had no intention of stopping. One bite after another, it chewed and swallowed the nearby primordial crystal ores. It even chewed and swallowed many rocks. It really wasn't picky at all. This fellow is indeed a monster that can eat 1,000 mountains daily in the future. Zhou couldn't help but marvel. Although they were both mythical creatures, Banana Fairy and Truth Listener's appetite was much worse than its. As for demonic neonate, she had never eaten anything since she was born. Tyrant Behemoth was like a drilling machine. Wherever it gnawed, a layer of the rock wall was bitten off. During this period of time, Tyrant Behemoth was indeed starving, as there were no dungeons to grind. In order to conserve food, Joan waited until it was extremely hungry before giving it some food. During this period of time, Tyrant Behemoth wasn't even half full, much less full. This time, with food, how could it give up? It ate crazily the entire way. In half a day, it finished all the primordial crystal ores in the bat cave. Its stomach was bloated like a huge ball. This fellow, I really can't afford to raise it in the future. If it wasn't for the game dungeons and the primordial crystals in the bat cave, Joan would have had the urge to strangle Tyrant Behemoth to death. He wanted to kill it before it became a gluttonous prodigal to prevent it from bringing disaster to the world. Suddenly, Joan saw the stuffed Tyrant Behemoth burp. Then, black light emitted from its body, completely enveloping its body. Is it about to evolve to the epic stage? Joan was immediately overjoyed. If he had known that the primordial crystal ores were so useful to Tyrant Behemoth, Joan would have brought it here long ago. It was a waste to grind the bat caves so many times in the past. After advancing to the epic stage, Tyrant Behemoth should be able to eat more, right? Joan's eyes flashed with excitement when he thought of the Bureau's primordial crystal mine. Tyrant Behemoth kept evolving. Joan didn't know when it would complete its evolution, but the bat caving game was rather safe, so he left it here. Joan continued studying the Bureau's information, especially the parts regarding the primordial crystal mine. The primordial crystal mine wasn't in Holy City or the capital. Instead, it was in a dimensional zone in the wilderness. However, the dimensional zone had already been sealed by the Bureau. There was also one of the 4 sensors, Kaijin, guarding it. It wasn't easy to enter the dimensional zone to find the primordial crystal mine. After Joan studied it, he realized that there were many people who had designs on the primordial crystal mine, but none of them succeeded. The main reason was that the dimensional zone itself was very strange. It was the Bureau's greatest reliance. Ordinary people would die for no reason if they entered the dimensional zone. According to the information, and Sheng and company had definitely sent people there, but the outcome wasn't good. Many people were sent in, but only 2 came out alive. Not long after the 2 of them came out, problems occurred. One went crazy, and the other committed suicide. Now, the only information the family had was brought out by the 2 of them. After Joan read the information, he revealed a look of delight. That place was indeed strange, but he might be able to give it a try. Chapter 435. Joan had carefully studied the information and Sheng had given him and believed that the power there was likely a curse power. Truth Listener had a very strong restraining power against curses. However, I still need to verify the exact situation before I know. It's best if I can find a tiny palm symbol and download the dimensional zone into my phone. Joan didn't plan on heading to the primordial crystal mine immediately. Tyrant Behemoth was still incubating, so it was useless even if he went now. It was impossible for him to mine by himself. Even if he went in now, it wouldn't be of much use. He wouldn't be able to take away too many primordial crystals. According to usual practice, Joan first went to the underground sea. At that moment, there were more than 10 palm prints on the black dragon's body. Apart from those palm prints, other parts of its body had begun to develop poisonous boils that were festering. After Joan entered the sea, the other 8 black dragons attacked him, but the black dragon was in a daze as though it was in a half-asleep state. It was on the verge of losing consciousness. From the looks of it, it should be soon. Joan was delighted as he looked forward to what the black dragon would drop after its death. After escaping the underground sea, Joan didn't immediately leave the game. He observed the sapphire-like sky for a while, but he didn't discover anything inside. He had once approached it before dying. There should be a terrifying creature in the sapphire-like sky, but he hadn't discovered its existence. Just as Joan was about to exit the game, he suddenly saw a blue light flash in the distant sapphire sky. It was like an electrocardiogram signal that flashed across the sapphire sky. The blue light came suddenly and disappeared quickly. Zhou saw the blue light flash, but after waiting for a while, he didn't see the blue light appear again. I wonder what it is. It should be a mythical creature, right? Zhou knew that it was useless even if he knew what it was. With his current strength, killing a chained black dragon was already so difficult. He had no chance against an unrestrained mythical creature. He looked at the evolving tyrant behemoth in the Batcave. It was still evolving, and he didn't know when it would succeed. After exiting the game, Zhou received a call from Ensheng. Young Master One, I have good news to tell you. Our plan against the Bureau is about to bear fruit, Ensheng said. Zhou was naturally very happy to hear that the Bureau was about to be in trouble. However, he wanted to personally send them to hell. Ensheng, Jack is already dead. I want to leave Chess Mountain, Zhou said. Of course. The Bureau probably doesn't have the time to deal with you for the time being. I'll get someone to send you back to school tomorrow, Ensheng said. There's no need. I'll go back myself. Before that, I still want to return to my hometown, Zhou said. That's fine. Even Jack isn't your match. It's not easy to find someone who can protect you now. It's up to you. Ensheng paused before asking, why are you returning to Virtue? You don't have any relatives there, do you? There are some things at home that I wish to take back. By the way, can you get a pass to guide Ancient City? I wish to take a look when I return, Zhou said. That's easy. Just go there directly. I'll make a call and make arrangements, Ensheng said straightforwardly. After hanging up, Zhou packed his things and told Qin Wufu that he was leaving. Not only did he want to return to the manor, but he also wanted to head to the Bureau's primordial crystal mine. The reason Zhou wanted to go to Guide City first was because he wanted to see the Fire God platform in reality and the Stone Saber in the Stone Furnace. In-game, the Stone Saber was just a phantom that couldn't be touched, so he wanted to take a look on the way. Are you really leaving? If you're willing, you can stay here. I'll make you the team leader of the Special Operations Team and be in charge of those fellows. I'll explain things to the Overseer. Qin Wufu wanted Zhou to stay. He felt that it was a waste for Zhou to return to school. Overseer, I'm still a student after all. I should focus on my studies, Zhou said. That's good too. There are indeed a few impressive existences in Sunset College, especially Chancellor Lung. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's the #1 person below the mythical stage. It will be beneficial for you to learn more from him, Qin Wufu said. Zhou nodded slightly. Then I'll be leaving now. That fast? Qin Wufu was slightly astonished. There's no point in staying another night. I still have something to do, Zhou said. All right, but you have to bid farewell to those fellows. Otherwise, they will definitely eat me up, Qin Wufu said with a smile. After leaving Chess Mountain, Zhou rode the mutated stone Shi in the direction of Guide City. Back when he left Guide City, he was only at the mortal stage. Now, in less than a year, he had advanced to the epic stage. He was very different from before. When he came to guide Ancient City again, Zhou recalled the combat test he had participated in with Li Xian. It felt like it had happened a long time ago. After entering the Ancient City, he saw scattered people fighting the skeleton soldiers. Zhou circled around them and headed deeper into the Ancient City. Although he had only been here once in real life, he had grinded it countless times in-game. Zhou was extremely familiar with Guide Ancient City, so he easily arrived in front of the Fire God platform. The Firebirds on the Fire God platform naturally couldn't injure Zhou. He walked up the stairs, and the Firebirds that filled the sky attacked. All Zhou did was circulate the Ancient Sovereign Sutra, and the Firebirds automatically flew back. When he arrived at the top of the Fire God platform, it wasn't much different from in-game. The layout was the same, but it was cartoonish in-game. It looked cuter, but in reality, it was even more ancient. There were flames burning in the mottled stone furnace. Indeed, there was a stone saber stuck in the flames. It looked a little rougher than in-game, probably the kind that was made by hand. There were potholes and natural stone patterns on the saber's blade. Only the edge of the blade was relatively finely ground, making it look very sharp. It was likely a stone saber that was half man-made. Zhou circulated the Ancient Sovereign Sutra and summoned the Ancient Sovereign Life Soul. He attached it to him before reaching his hand into the stone furnace. The flames in the stone furnace seemed to sense something and automatically parted. It didn't burn Zhou Wen's palm, revealing the stone saber inside. Zhou Wen held the stone saber and immediately felt the coarse texture unique to stone. It was a little cold to the touch, but it was firm. I grabbed it. The stone saber in real life really exists? Zhou Wen was alarmed. Chapter 436. At the instant he held the stone saber, Zhou Wen immediately felt an ancient aura emit from it. It left him slightly shocked as he involuntarily tightened his grip on the saber's hilt. With a gentle tug, he pulled out the stone saber slightly. Zhou Wen immediately felt the entire guide, ancient city tremble. Flame spewed out from the stone furnace, as though countless living beings were roaring inside. Zhou Wen's expression changed slightly as he immediately pressed the stone saber back. Only then did the terrifying feeling vanish. This stone saber could be like the jade box on Chess Mountain, an item that seals dimensional zones. Zhou Wen released the stone saber and didn't dare touch it again. Although he didn't know what the consequences of pulling out the stone saber would be, Zhou Wen chose not to touch it. After getting off the Fire God platform, Zhou Wen realized that something was amiss. Guide Ancient City had the most skeleton soldiers, with skeleton generals in the minority. But now, Zhou Wen saw more than 10 skeleton generals nearby. He hadn't seen them when he arrived. Clearly, they had just appeared. Pulling out the stone saber really does have some effects. Zhou Wen continued walking out and realized that there were indeed many skeleton generals. It was already impressive to encounter 1 or 2 skeleton generals in the ancient city, but now, Zhou Wen had seen more than 50 along the way. He had no idea how many he hadn't seen. The appearance of so many skeleton generals made the garrison very happy. Usually, there were only a few skeleton soldiers to kill. Now that there were suddenly so many skeleton generals, the drop rate had also increased significantly. Naturally, they were very excited. Zhou Wen was somewhat worried. Based on the present situation, the situation might be worse than he imagined if the dimensional zone seal was really removed. After returning to his room and staying the night, Zhou Wen set off for the Bureau's primordial crystal mine early the next morning. The dimensional zone where the primordial crystal mine was located was named Don't Cry Valley. Legend had it that it was originally an extremely beautiful valley. A young couple lived in the valley. The woman grew vegetables and flowers in the valley, while the man went hunting in the mountains. They live a life of immortal companionship. However, there was one time when the man went hunting in the mountains and never returned. The woman waited bitterly for the man to return, but he didn't. After that, the villagers in the vicinity heard the sound of crying coming from the valley at night, almost never stopping. Some villagers mustered up their courage and entered the valley during the day. They found that the woman had been dead for a long time. Her body had dried up, and there was a knife in her abdomen. It looked like she had committed suicide. The villagers buried the woman's body and changed the name of the valley to Don't Cry Valley, hoping that the woman could rest in peace and stop crying. However, the sound of the woman's sobs could still be heard every night. Of course, these were only legends. There were no cries in Don't Cry Valley, but ever since the dimensional storms, there had been cries in Don't Cry Valley, but it wasn't from that woman. Everyone who entered the Don't Cry Valley would cry uncontrollably. They would not be able to control their tears. If they went too deep, they would die in tears. The Bureau had clearly grasped the secret of Don't Cry Valley, so they could come and go freely in Don't Cry Valley without being affected by the mysterious power. However, the other factions had sent many people to probe the secret of Don't Cry Valley and snatch the primordial crystal mine inside, but they returned empty-handed. Many people had even died. This included the Infamily. The Infamily only learned of the tears in Don't Cry Valley after the 2 survivors returned. Zhou Wen suspected that the power that made people cry was similar to a curse, and Truth Listener had a good restraining effect on curses. Therefore, Zhou Wen planned on coming to Don't Cry Valley to give it a try. If he could really restrain the power of Don't Cry Valley, he would have a high chance of entering the primordial crystal mine. Of course, Zhou didn't take the risk of entering. Firstly, it was because Tyrant Behemoth hadn't completed its evolution. Secondly, he still wanted to find the tiny palm symbol outside. If he could find it, he could give it a try in-game. That way, he would be more confident. In Luoyang's and family, and Tianzhua frowned at Sheng and said, "What do you mean by losing contact with that punk? When he went to guide Ancient City, he still contacted me. However, there was no news of him after that. It's been 4 days now, but there's no news of him. He hasn't returned to Luoyang, nor is he in Guide City. There's no news of him at Chess Mountain either," and Sheng said. "Then where is he?" And Tianzhua asked, and Sheng pondered for a moment before saying, "Overseer, I think he might have gone to the Bureau." "Nonsense. What could he do in the Bureau? Don't tell me he really thinks he has the ability to become enemies with the Bureau just because he killed Jack?" And Tianzhua slammed the teacup on the table. And Sheng said with a bitter smile, "Young Master Wen looks gentle and doesn't seem to care about anything, but deep down, he's as stubborn as you, Overseer. The Bureau has repeatedly bullied him, so young Master Wen definitely won't let it go. He previously asked me for the Bureau's information, so he must have gone to find trouble with the Bureau." "Nonsense. He's arrogant and does whatever he wants just because he has some achievements. He doesn't know his place. Does he think he's invincible just because he killed Jack?" And Tianzhua said angrily, "Overseer, I don't think young Master Wen is a rash person. I believe he definitely has his own ideas. Perhaps he can really do something." And Sheng said, "What can he do? Not to mention Shen Yuqi, even I have to be wary of him. However, none of the 4 censors under him are weaker than Jack. They're extremely difficult to deal with. It's fine if he only wants to vent his anger and kill a few lackeys, but if he really dares to head to the Bureau's headquarters, he will definitely die." And Tianzhua paused for a moment before saying, "If he really wants to kill a few lackeys to vent his anger, then he's a stupid pig. Doing such a thing won't help him at all. It will only make the Bureau target him even more. Young Master Wen isn't a bloodthirsty person, so he naturally won't kill people to vent his anger." And Sheng mumbled inwardly, "It seems you're the one who likes to kill, right? Humph. Who knows what kind of nonsense he will do. Go and bring him back for me." And Tianzhua said, "Overseer, didn't you say that you wouldn't care about him?" And Sheng asked, "Of course I don't care about him. It's good that he's dead. I'm just afraid that if he's captured by the Bureau, wouldn't that cause a huge ruckus?" And Tianzhua glared at Sheng and said, "Go immediately. No matter what method you use, you have to bring him back." "Yes, I'll go to the capital now," and Sheng replied. Chapter 437. Shen Yuqi had been in a bad mood recently. An inspector in the Bureau had betrayed him and stolen many secret files. The secret files recorded some of the Bureau's actions, and these actions were aimed at some members of the 6 families. The exposure of these secret files immediately made the Bureau a target. The Bureau was originally the guard dog of the 6 families. Now that it wanted to bite its master, the outcome was obvious. Shen Yuqi was already in a terrible fix. The only thing to be thankful for was that the inspector's rank wasn't high enough. The files he had stolen were only a small portion, and they didn't touch on the important core. Although the files only investigated some of the outer members of the 6 families, Shen Yuqi was still held accountable and forced to explain to the 6 families. For this, the Bureau had paid quite a huge price. Originally, the Cape family, which Liz was from, would provide a huge sum of money to the Bureau every year. In fact, the 6 families provided the same amount of money to the Bureau. However, just as it was time to transfer the money this year, the 6 families' funding was canceled at the same time. Although the excuse was different, Shen Yuqi knew very well that this was just a small warning from the 6 families. Not only that, some of the inspectors from the Bureau who had investigated the 6 families had also encountered some problems. Although no lives had been lost, Shen Yuqi knew that if such a thing happened again, it wouldn't be so simple. And Tianzhua, your revenge sure came quickly. Shen Yuqi had already guessed who had done all of this. Apart from Tianzhua, he couldn't think of a second person. Even Jack failed. This family is really getting more and more troublesome. Just as Shin Yuchi was thinking about what to do next, he heard a knock on the door. Director General, Northern Ice City has already agreed to our deal. This is the price list they offered. The secretary handed a document to Shin Yuchi. Shin Yuchi carefully looked at the price list and asked with a frown, "Why is it 30% more expensive than what we agreed on previously?" Northern Ice City said that the aurora pith produced by their side is decreasing, so they have to increase the price. This is the lowest price they can accept, the secretary said helplessly. What do you mean decreasing? It's because they know that we urgently need the aurora pith and are demanding an exorbitant price. Shin Yuchi snorted coldly, feeling somewhat helpless. He had to obtain the aurora pith. This was a necessity for the advancement of the mythical companion beast. No matter how expensive it was, he had to obtain it. After the companion beast advanced, it would be the most powerful trump card in the Bureau's hands. This was a major matter that couldn't be delayed. However, the Bureau's current financial situation was just too bad. It had originally been counting on the aid from the 6 families, but now that the aid was gone, it would be difficult for the Bureau to operate normally, much less purchase the priceless aurora pith. From the looks, I can only use the primordial crystals in storage. Shin Yuchi could only come up with this idea. The amount of reserves in the Special Inspector Bureau's primordial crystal mine exceeded everyone's imagination. Even Shin Yuchi hadn't expected the reserves to be so large when he first started mining. However, Shin Yuchi was not in a hurry to exchange the crystal ores for money. Every year, he only took out a few tons of crystal ores to sell, and a large amount of crystal ores were still stored in the warehouse under the mine. If all the primordial crystal mines there were taken out, the Bureau wouldn't have to worry about funds for decades to come. Of course, Shin Yuchi definitely wouldn't let anyone know that the Bureau had such a huge sum of wealth. Even the 6 families only believed that the primordial crystal mine was an ordinary rich mine. Continue negotiating with Northern Ice City and try to lower the price, Shin Yuchi said to his secretary. Although he had money, he absolutely could not waste it. Those crystals would be of great use in the future. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Shin Yuchi did not want to use a single cent. Yes, Chief. The secretary answered and left. Shin Yuchi picked up the intelligence report from Woyang and couldn't help but frown. Even Jack can't bring Zhou when back from the family. Who else is more suitable? Shin Yuchi was momentarily unable to think of a good candidate. It was more difficult to get someone from Woyang's uncrowned king, the family, than he had imagined. He had thought that Jacker would be able to handle this matter, but in the end, he failed. Let's think about it carefully. Shin Yuchi had no intention of giving up. Although Jacker had failed, Wang Mingyuan's matter was of great importance. The 6 families had given him a death order to investigate it thoroughly no matter what. Even if he was willing to give up, the 6 families wouldn't. Zhou sprawled on the top of a small mountain and used binoculars to observe the valley not far away. That valley was the legendary Don't Cry Valley. From the outside, the valley entrance wasn't very big. It looked like 3 to 4 trucks could pass through it side by side. There were checkpoints built there, and there were people patrolling it. However, these weren't crucial. Those patrolling were only ordinary inspectors at the legendary stage. It wasn't difficult for them to rush into Don't Cry Valley. In fact, many people had rushed in before, but not many of them came out alive. The Bureau clearly didn't focus their defense on the outside. The primordial crystal mine was likely the core of their defense. One of the 4 sensors, Kai Jin, would likely be there. Zhou wasn't too familiar with Kai Jin, but in the information Sheng had given him, this person had been mentioned in detail. He didn't stand out and was the most low-key of the 4 sensors. There was very little information about him. All he knew was that he was good at using the saber. However, for Shin Yuchi to hand such an important primordial crystal mine to him, it was obvious that this person wasn't simple. From time to time, drones would fly past. All Zhou could do was hide in the dark and continue observing the situation in Don't Cry Valley. It's still too far away. I can't see if there's a tiny palm symbol there. I have to get closer. Zhou thought for a moment and summoned Truth Listener. He hid in the grass on the mountain peak and got it to take a look. Truth Listener was only the size of a finger. It was relatively small, making it difficult for ordinary people to see it. Ordinary radars couldn't detect its existence either. Truth Listener ran quickly through the grass and forest. Soon, it approached the entrance of Don't Cry Valley. Zhou order was for it to search for the tiny palm symbol. Truth Listener didn't approach the checkpoint. Under the cover of the grass, it circled the entrance of the valley, but it didn't discover anything. If I can't find a tiny figure, I'll have to go in and give it a try myself. Just as Zhou was thinking about how he could enter, his phone vibrated. He took it out and realized a notification had popped up in-game. Killed mythical creature, True Blood Demon Dragon. Discovered dimensional crystal. Chapter 438. True Blood Demon Dragon? What's that? Zhou was first taken aback for a second before he reacted. He was immediately overjoyed as he hurriedly took out his phone and entered the Zhuolu battlefield dungeon. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to run towards the underground sea. Could the crystal dropped by that black dragon have been swallowed by the other black dragons? Zhou was somewhat worried, but he realized that it was a game and not real life. The black dragons probably didn't have such high intelligence. He ran to the underground sea and plunged into it. Soon, he saw 8 black dragons pulling a carriage over. One of them was gone. I wonder where that black dragon died. Zhou felt a slight headache, but it was probably nearby. Now, Zhou didn't dare let the blood-colored avatar die. If it died, there wouldn't be any drops. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to turn around and run, luring the 8 black dragons out of the water. Then he led them in a huge circle and led them to a spot relatively close to the coast. Only then did he use teleportation to shake them off and circle back to his previous spot. Zhou returned to the spot where he had encountered the 8 dragons. Without much effort, he saw a treasure glow at the bottom of the sea. Zhou dived over and saw a pearl that resembled a dragon pearl land in the sand at the bottom of the sea. There was a black dragon's shadow swimming in the pearl. It was a primordial energy skill crystal. After Zhou obtained the primordial energy skill crystal, he didn't have time to take a closer look. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to leave the underground sea to prevent the 8 dragons from chasing after him. Now that he didn't have the ability to teleport, it wouldn't be easy to shake off the 8 dragons if he were to be entangled by them. After returning to the Bat Cave, Zhou carefully sized up the True Blood Demon Dragon's primordial energy skill crystal. True Blood Demon Dragon Crystal. Mythical requirements. Strength 41, Poison 21, Life Providence that strengthens Constitution, Life Soul that strengthens Constitution. I already have 41 strength. Although I don't know why I need the poison stat. My poison stat has reached the standard. I wonder if the Ancient Sovereign Sutra counts as a Constitution strengthening Life, Providence, and Life Soul. Zhou found a hidden cave and prepared to give it a try. He switched his Essence Energy Art to the Ancient Sovereign Sutra and fused the Defy Ancient Sovereign Life Soul with him. When Zhou attempted to absorb the True Blood Demon Dragon Crystal again, the Dragon Pearl-like crystal immediately lit up. Wisps of black gas seeped out of the crystal and seeped into the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou immediately felt a terrifying force surge and roar in his body as though it was about to explode. Soon, Zhou realized that something was amiss. His muscles were expanding and his bones were growing. He grew a head taller in a short period of time, reaching about 2 meters tall. There were scales on his body, but they weren't black. Under the light of the ancient king body, the scales looked like blood crystals. Zhou felt his entire body ache as though 2 holes had been pierced through his head. His spine was in excruciating pain as though a blade was slicing through his flesh. Zhou endured the pain until the crystal's energy completely melted into his body. Only then did he feel much better. However, when he used his phone's selfie function to take a look at himself, he realized that his body was like a humanoid dragon beast. Apart from not having a dragon tail, he had dragon horns on his head, dragon fins on his back, and scales all over his body. He didn't look like a human at all. He hurriedly stopped the primordial energy skill he had just comprehended. Then, Zhou felt his body deflate like a balloon as he shrank to his original size. The dragon scales and dragon horns on his body also vanished. Only then did Zhou heave a sigh of relief. He hurriedly looked at the information in-game and saw a notification pop up. Absorbed True Blood Demon Dragon Crystal. Attained Mythical Essence Energy Skill Demon Dragon True Body. Although it's a Mythical Essence Energy Skill, this image is a little odd. Zhou attempted to use Demon Dragon True Body again and realized that this Mythical Essence Energy Skill could only be used when he used the Defy Ancient Sovereign Life Soul. He couldn't transform when he used other Essence Energy Arts. After activating Demon Dragon True Body, Zhou looked at himself on the phone's camera and couldn't recognize himself. In the sun-like brilliance stood a blood-red dragon. As the brilliance was too strong, he could only vaguely see the blood-colored dragon's figure. It looked odd, no matter how he looked at it. Demon Dragon True Body only lasted for about 10 seconds before Zhou felt his essence energy drain and automatically returned to his human form. The Ancient Sovereign Sutra doesn't have the ability to provide unlimited essence energy. This Demon Dragon True Body can only last for about 10 seconds. I wonder how powerful it is. Zhou didn't dare try it in reality, so he returned to the game. He first grinded some essence energy crystals to replenish his essence energy before heading to the underground sea. As Zhou had already restarted the game dungeon while grinding for essence energy crystals, there were 9 black dragons again when he arrived at the underground sea. Seeing the 9 black dragons roar as they charged at him, Zhou activated Demon Dragon True Body. He was like a humanoid dragon beast that emitted a terrifying glow as he charged at the 9 black dragons. In nearly 10 seconds, Zhou felt like he had become Superman. His physical strength and speed were able to clash head-on with the black dragons without being at a disadvantage. He was like a humanoid dragon beast. However, 10 seconds later, Zhou was reduced to his original form. Not long after, he was killed by the 9 black dragons. What a pity. If I could use the Demon Dragon True Body in the Slaughterer state, I would be able to storm into the Bureau now and smash up the Bureau's headquarters, removing this department from existence. Zhou felt extremely regretful. However, 10 seconds was enough for Zhou to do many things. However, during these 10 seconds, Zhou couldn't use other essence energy skills. If his essence energy was expended by essence energy skills, the Demon Dragon True Body would automatically stop. He wouldn't even be able to last 10 seconds. It's not that I can't use Demon Dragon True Body for a long period of time. I can grind for some essence energy crystals in-game. After the Demon Dragon True Body ends, I'll find a place to absorb the essence energy crystals. However, in that case, I'll still need some time as a buffer. Zhou was very satisfied with the Demon Dragon True Body. The strength and speed of a mythical creature weren't fake. Even without using any essence energy skills, he could easily kill an epic creature with his strength and speed. It's time to make that arrogant flower pay the price. Zhou excitedly opened Chess Mountain's instance dungeon, prepared to teach the flower a lesson and find her weakness. He wouldn't have to suffer her anger in the future. As Tyrant Behemoth hadn't evolved successfully, Zhou could only hide in the cave and wait for it to complete its evolution before heading to Don't Cry Valley. Apart from gaming, Zhou had nothing else to do. Chapter 439. The blood-colored avatar came in front of Chess Mountain's mountain wall. Zhou had nothing to be afraid of in-game. He straightened his back and summoned the Overlord sword in hand. He slashed out with the demonic astral wheel as the blood-red wheel of light immediately tore through the sword and slashed at the flower on a mountain wall. A petal of the flower fell silently. When the demonic astral wheel struck the petal, it immediately shattered. Just as Zhou was about to see what tricks the flower had up its sleeve, he suddenly saw the blood-colored avatar fall to the ground. The game screen turned black. Zhou felt his body turn cold. Thankfully, he hadn't had too much of a conflict with the Arch. Otherwise, his corpse would have rotted by now. How'd I die just now? I only saw a petal fall before I died, Zhou thought to himself. Clearly, The flower's power of wishes and curses weren't of the same system, but they could still kill. It's clearly the same as killing. Why isn't the power of wishes restrained by the evil nullification life soul? Zhou was somewhat depressed, dripping his blood to revive. He once again arrived in front of Chess Mountain's mountain wall. Zhou took out all sorts of martial arts and used all the techniques he had learned. He even used all sorts of companion beasts, but the outcome was the same. As long as the flower dropped a petal, the blood-colored avatar would immediately die. There was no chance of survival. Zhou had also tried to get demonic neonate to release the ancient sword from afar to slash at the flower, but before the ancient sword could reach it, the petals had already fallen. The blood-colored avatar fell to the ground again before the game ended. What crappy flower is this? How can I live? After Zhou died again, he had the urge to smash his phone. No matter how strong the other dimensional creatures were, he could at least see some possibilities. He couldn't kill them now because he didn't have enough strength. When he had enough strength in the future, he would naturally have a chance to kill them. However, he couldn't see any possibility with this flower. If a petal fell, it would die regardless of whether it was a god or a ghost. Zhou calmed himself down and began considering the flower's problem. The flower in-game clearly doesn't have any intelligence, nor does it know how to communicate with others. It's just a flower without any consciousness. Only when I attack it will it automatically react and drop a petal. This is completely different from the Dharch I met in reality. Is it the difference between the game and reality, or is there another reason? Zhou had a nagging feeling that the Dharch wasn't as simple as a flower. Perhaps this flower was just a tool the Dharch used to send a voice transmission. The real Dharch was likely someone else, but Zhou didn't know who she was. After entering the game again, Zhou didn't attack the flower this time. He attempted to ignore it and climbed up the mountain wall. The outcome was somewhat unexpected. Zhou didn't attack the flower, nor did the flower attack him. It continued, growing quietly on the mountain wall like an ordinary wildflower. Zhou already had the experience of climbing Chess Mountain once. It was the same in-game. A very powerful force pulled at his body, making it very difficult for him to crawl. It wasn't easy for him to climb to the top of Chess Mountain. Just like in reality, there was a stone staircase that led to the center of the mountain. There was a huge boulder in the shape of a bun. In the middle of the boulder was a snow-white jade box. Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to touch the jade box, but he missed. His palm passed through the jade box as though it was just a phantom and not something that really existed. As expected, this jade box is the same as the stone saber. It's an item that suppresses dimensional zones. I can't touch it in-game, so I can only take it in reality. Although Zhou was greedy, once the dimensional zone was unsealed, too many people would die. He wouldn't take it no matter what. When he descended the mountain, Zhou saw the flower on the mountain wall and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Previously, when the Dharch got me to enter Chess Mountain, she didn't pass through the mountain entrance. Instead, she passed through a crack at the flower's root. Could it be that this flower is actually the key to entering Chess Mountain? Is this a secret passageway? But how can I get the flower to help me open the passageway into Chess Mountain? I wonder if begging it will work? Zhou thought to himself as he gave it a try. After all, it didn't take much effort to beg. Flower, oh, flower, can you help me open the path to Chess Mountain? Zhou said to the flower. However, the flower didn't react at all. It looked like it had no intention of bothering with him. Can't I? Zhou thought of the way he used the void flower. Thinking that both of them were flowers, they might have something in common. Therefore, he shouted at the flower. In the language the Dharch had taught him, the actual meaning was open. Boom. Rumble. With the fall of a petal, the entire Chess Mountain trembled. The mountain cracked open from a flower's root. It really opened. It actually works. Then wouldn't I have died so many times for nothing? Zhou was somewhat depressed. However, when he thought of the mountain of high-level crystals and the dozen or so mythical companion eggs in Chess Mountain, Zhou didn't hold it against them. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to rush in. Everything was the same as when the Dharch had brought him here. Soon, he arrived at the mountain belly where Deer Terrace Pavilion was. Zhou followed his previous method and climbed down the mountain wall. Then, he jumped into the river and swam in the direction of Deer Terrace Pavilion. After swimming for a while, he felt a huge object approaching the blood-colored avatar from beneath the river. Zhou was already experienced, so he ignored it. However, soon, the red tentacles or water plants wrapped around the blood-colored avatar and instantly pulled it into the river. Before Zhou could do anything, the game screen went black. Holy sh*T, what's going on? Zhou was depressed. He had done everything according to the previous method, but the bone flute wasn't in the game. He naturally couldn't get the blood-colored avatar to bite the bone flute and enter the river. This was probably the problem. Since the old method doesn't work, I can only barge in. Unable to get the bone flute into the game, Zhou had no choice but to give up on taking the old path. Summoning the stone armor, he held the Overlord's sword in hand and the Truth Listener earring in place. With the banana fan in his other hand, he rode on the white shadow of poison and flew towards Deer Terrace Pavilion. Before he approached Deer Terrace Pavilion, he saw a black gas rise from the ancient building, condensing into the image of a black nine-tailed fox. It coiled above the ancient building, its 9 tails formed from black gas, swaying as its pair of bewitching fox eyes stared at the blood-colored avatar. Chapter 440. 2 beams shot out from the fox demon's eyes as it arrived in front of the blood-colored avatar in the blink of an eye. It was unbelievably fast, giving Zhou no time to react. Zhou subconsciously used ghost steps and almost dodged to the side. However, the white shadow of poison didn't react that quickly. After being illuminated by the beam, it disintegrated and vanished. What terrifying power! Zhou was alarmed as he saw the fox demon's eyes constantly shoot out beams of light at the blood-colored avatar. Zhou was best at movement techniques, but under such a fast gaze, he found it difficult to dodge a few times. With no other choice, he could only draw his sword and slash at the fox demon's gaze. However, the beam didn't seem corporeal. Overlord sword beam pierced through it as the beam shone on Zhou and Overlord sword. Zhou only saw Overlord sword and the blood-colored avatar disintegrate into points of light before the game screen went black. The fox demon's gaze is probably about to reach the speed of light. How can I dodge it? Zhou felt somewhat helpless. In front of absolute speed, no matter how good his movement techniques were, it was difficult for him to dodge. From the looks of it, this path won't work either. I can't walk in a river, and I have to pass through the fox demon in the air. I can't afford to provoke either of them. Zhou realized that he couldn't enter Deer Terrace Pavilion. Is there any way to enter? Zhou suddenly thought of the stone wall he had seen in Deer Terrace Pavilion. He had simulated an essence energy art known as the Demon God Bloodline Catalog. He didn't know if it was useful. After dripping his blood to revive, he entered Chess Mountain again. This time, Zhou didn't take many weapons. After all, it was useless to take them, so he didn't take anything. All he did was switch his essence energy art to the Demon God Bloodline Catalog that he had just gained basic mastery without a life providence. After completing it, Zhou hesitated for a moment before choosing to jump into the river. After all, this was a path he had taken before. If he took another path, he didn't know what problems would arise. If the Demon God Bloodline Catalog was really useful, he could directly reach the place where the mythical companion egg was. Just like the last time, the blood-colored avatar didn't swim far before strange blood-colored tentacles appeared at the bottom of the river. However, this time, the blood-colored tentacles didn't pull him into the water. They only danced in the water like swaying water plants. The Demon God Bloodline Catalog is actually useful? Zhou was delighted as he separated his tentacles and continued swimming forward. Soon, he arrived at the side of Deer Terrace Pavilion. Something unexpected happened. Zhou searched the left side of Deer Terrace Pavilion for a long time, but he didn't find the hole he had previously entered. No way. There's no hole in game. Zhou searched a few more times to confirm that there was no mistake. There really wasn't a hole. Helpless, Joan could only swim to the front of Deer Terrace Pavilion and climb up the stone steps that resembled a heavenly staircase. The base of Deer Terrace Pavilion had a total of 3 levels, arranged like a pyramid. Further up was the ancient building, which also had 3 levels. Previously, Joan had swum underwater. According to his estimations, he was likely at the bottom of the pedestal. If they walked up the stone steps, there was no door on the 3rd floor of the base. They could only walk up the steps and directly reach the gate of the ancient building. He controlled the blood-colored avatar and carefully walked up the steps with a perturbed heart. Although he had the demon god bloodline catalog to protect him, he had only gained basic mastery over it. He hadn't even condensed a life providence. When Joan walked to the bottom of the pedestal platform, he suddenly saw an immortal fog spewing out from the platform. It transformed into many fairies and immortals as they cast their gazes at the blood-colored avatar. Joan's heart skipped a beat. He saw that these fairies and immortals were rather beautiful, but they had an indescribable seductive charm to them. He thought of the legend where the demoness had summoned some demons that could transform and disguise themselves as immortals to drink with the tyrant. Although they were only demons, they were still legendary figures. Perhaps they had the strength of a mythical stage. The fairies and immortals looked at the blood-colored avatar, and after sizing him up a few times, they stopped looking at him. All of them held alcohol flasks and cups as they drank. There were even fairies who danced as they drank, but their dance moves were all vulgar and gaudy. This demon god bloodline catalog is actually so useful. Doesn't that mean that I can enter and exit dimensional zones at will in the future without worrying about being attacked? Joan thought to himself, but he didn't stop as he continued walking up the steps. When he arrived at the 2nd level's pedestal platform, he saw many fairies and immortals. These fairies and immortals were similar to the ones on each level. They only sized up the blood-colored avatar for a moment before ignoring him. Joan walked all the way up to the 3rd level's platform, which was also the level where the ancient building was. He saw some fairies and immortals, but the outcome was the same. No one paid him any attention. Joan controlled the blood-colored avatar to walk towards the ancient building's door. The door was open, and when he looked inside, he saw 6 fairies and immortals drinking and having fun inside. However, they were different from the fairies and immortals outside. They sat on both sides of the hall, and in front of each of them was a short table. Not only was there wine on the table, but there were also all sorts of fruits and delicacies. Just as the blood-colored avatar walked into the hall, a fairy sitting near the door looked at him. With just a glance, her expression changed as she raised her hand and shot out a rainbow-colored beam of light. "No good, I've been discovered." Joan retreated in a flash, but the rainbow-colored beam of light pursued him relentlessly as though it had a life of its own. It drew an arc in the air and chased after him like a rainbow. Joan continuously changed his movement techniques and dodged a few times, but the rainbow-colored beam of light still caught up to him. Helpless, he had no choice but to draw his sword and slash at the rainbow-colored beam of light. Bam! The Overlord's sword struck the rainbow-colored beam of light ruthlessly, shattering it. However, the blood-colored avatar's body was sent flying as it rolled down the stone steps. As such, the concealment from before lost its effect. The fairies and immortals on the platform pounced at the blood-colored avatar ferociously. Seeing that he had been exposed, Joan didn't hide any further. He switched back to the Lost Immortal Sutra, took out the banana fan, and fanned at the fairies and immortals who were charging at him. Bam! The sky was filled with immortals as they were sent flying by the fan. They either slammed into the wall or fell to the ground. All of them vomited blood and looked to be seriously injured. Some of them even revealed their true forms. Most of them were foxes, night owls, and chickens. So these fellows aren't at the mythical stage. Joan was relieved as he continuously fanned the fake fairies and immortals with the banana fan in his hand. He sent them flying everywhere, and some even slammed into Deer Terrace Pavilion to their deaths. Chapter 441. Killed Epic Creature. Ancient tomb demon fox. Discovered dimensional crystal. Killed epic creature, three-eyed cat demon. Discovered dimensional crystal. Killed epic creature, ancient tomb demon fox. With the banana fan combined with Slaughterer's infinite essence energy, his large-scale lethality was almost invincible among those at the same level. With a few flaps, many fake fairies and immortals were killed by him. When Zhou saw the dimensional crystals that they dropped, he was about to pick them up when he saw a rainbow beam fly over from above. It was the fairy sitting at the bottom of the hall. Zhou sent a grandine wind at the fairy. With a wave of her hand, a rainbow beam of light met the grandine wind and diverted it to the side. Zhou immediately knew that the fairy was probably at the mythical stage. Although the grandine wind was powerful, it wasn't at the mythical stage yet. It would definitely be at a disadvantage against a mythical creature. Zhou immediately turned around and ran down the stairs. The fairy chased after him as colorful light bloomed from her hands, transforming into rainbow beams that enveloped the blood-colored avatar like thousands of rays of light. The colorful rays of light seemed to have a life of their own. No matter how Zhou dodged, they would chase after him. Zhou saw the colorful light coming from all directions and had no room to dodge. He gritted his teeth and switched to the ancient Sovereign Sutra. At the same time, he used the demon dragon true body and used his powerful physique to withstand the rainbow light that filled the sky. Bam! When the rainbow light landed on Zhou's body, it made him feel as though he had been struck by a hammer. However, the rainbow light failed to tear through the blood-colored avatar scales. Instead, it shattered. What a powerful demon dragon true body! Zhou was overjoyed as he pounced at the fairy like a beast. The fairy's body changed, leaving behind afterimages. At the same time, her hands constantly released rainbow light. Although the demon dragon true body wasn't afraid of the rainbow light, it was repelled every time, unable to approach her. Seeing that time was ticking away, Zhou turned around and ran down with the demon dragon true body running out of time. The fairy chased after him and constantly attacked him. However, after Zhou left the third level and returned to the second level of the foundation, she didn't chase after him. Instead, she returned to the ancient building. The fake fairy on the second level charged forward. Although Zhou's demon dragon true body was gone and he no longer had any essence energy, he wasn't afraid of them. He switched back to Slaughterer and his essence energy immediately recovered to full. The Overlord Sword worked together with Transcendent Flying Immortal to kill the fairies and immortals that charged forward. Zhou realized that no matter how he killed on the second level, the dimensional creatures in the palace didn't come out again. I can't enter the palace, but it's not a bad idea to grind these epic creatures. Zhou summoned the baby tiger and killed all the fairies and immortals on the first and second levels. Some dimensional crystals dropped, including an essence energy skill crystal. Zhou didn't head up to the third level. However, he couldn't even deal with one demoness in the hall. There were 5 more there, so it was useless even if he went up now. Could the Arch be one of the 6 demonesses in the hall? Zhou thought to himself. Zhou hid in the cave and constantly grinded. Although the fairies disguised as fairies and immortals on Deer Terrace Pavilion weren't very capable, the dimensional crystals they dropped were pretty good. High-level dimensional crystals often dropped, so Zhou took this opportunity to raise his various stats. Tyrant Behemoth has successfully evolved and advanced to the epic stage. After grinding for 2 days, Zhou suddenly saw a notification pop up in-game. He couldn't help but be delighted. It's finally here. Zhou hurriedly opened the Companion Beast column. Among the epic Companion Beasts, there was indeed Tyrant Behemoth's name. He summoned Tyrant Behemoth in-game and saw a black monster that was as majestic as a mountain appear on the game screen. He couldn't tell how big it was in-game, but when compared to the blood-colored avatar, he realized that the blood-colored avatar was only the size of its palm. This fellow was like a small mountain. I wonder how much this fellow will eat in the future. Can I really afford to raise it? Zhou worried inwardly. Looking at Tyrant Behemoth stats, Zhou immediately threw his worries to the back of his mind. Tyrant behemoth, epic evolvable, life providence, immense strength life soul, violent crown strength, 41 speed, 41 constitution, 41 essence energy, 41 talent skill, mountain devouring companion form, boxing glove finally at the epic stage. It's time to begin. Zhou switched off his phone and came out of the cave. Taking advantage of the night, he sneaked towards Don't Cry Valley. Unfortunately, Jacker's companion egg hadn't grown yet. Otherwise, he would have been able to use Jacker's shadow escape ability to silently enter Don't Cry Valley. Now, Zhou had no choice but to barge in. Thankfully, the Bureau didn't focus its defense here. It wasn't difficult to barge in. The mysterious power that made people cry in Don't Cry Valley was the best defensive barrier. Zhou put on the mutated stone chi armor and wrapped his entire body in it. Without revealing his face, he switched to the Godfiend Life Providence and rushed towards the checkpoint. When the people from the Bureau saw a figure rush over, they didn't have time to react. They saw the figure flash through the checkpoint and disappear into Don't Cry Valley. They almost thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Did something rush in just now? One of the inspectors looked at the other and asked with uncertainty. I think so. I didn't see it clearly either. The other inspector wasn't too sure either. Then should we report it? Let's take a look at the surveillance footage first. The two of them pulled out the surveillance footage and slowed it down several times. Only then did they see a person in stone armor rush into Don't Cry Valley. Quick, report to the overseer. The two hurriedly sent someone into Don't Cry Valley to report to Kai Jin. After Zhou rushed into the valley, the truth listener earring on his ear immediately heated up. At the same time, a surge of essence energy surged into his body from his eyes. Instead of being alarmed, he was delighted. This meant that the truth listener earring was working. Don't Cry Valley wasn't considered a dangerous place for him. He sized up his surroundings before flying in one direction. As no one had reached the primordial crystal mine alive, Zhou didn't know its exact location. All he could do was search the valley. There were bamboo forests everywhere in the huge valley. After the wind blew through the bamboo forest, there was a rustling sound that sounded extremely strange. Although it didn't look big from the outside, after it became a dimensional zone, the space inside the valley was huge. In the endless bamboo forest, Zhou quickly ran as he searched for the possible location of the primordial crystal mine. The deeper he went into the valley, the more primordial energy he felt surging into his eyes. Clearly, the mysterious power was gradually strengthening. However, to the truth listener earring, the mysterious power became beneficial. It allowed Zhou to replenish his primordial energy when he used other primordial energy arts. Chapter 442. There were disturbances in Don't Cry Valley, so all kinds of equipment couldn't work normally. Zhou wasn't worried about cameras, but he still had to pay attention to companion beasts. Some people like to use bugs, mosquitoes, and other companion beasts for reconnaissance. They were harder to guard against than electronic equipment because very few people could notice them. Furthermore, they were especially useful in dimensional zones. Zhou kept using the truth listener earring to pay attention to every movement in the vicinity to ensure that he could immediately discover any dimensional creatures that appeared. Suddenly, Zhou sensed the existence of a dimensional creature. It was a green bamboo leaf snake. It was lying on a bamboo joint, and its color was the same as the bamboo leaves. It was difficult for ordinary people to discover its existence. However, the truth listener earring had discovered its existence from afar. Zhou didn't know if the bamboo leaf snake was a dimensional creature that originally existed in Don't Cry Valley or if someone had placed it here. Regardless of which it was, Zhou had no intention of alarming it. He circled to the other side and continued heading deeper into the bamboo forest at a distance that it couldn't discover. Along the way, Zhou discovered quite a number of dimensional creatures. He circled around them without alarming any of them. He vaguely felt that he was heading in the right direction. As he walked forward, more and more dimensional creatures appeared. There were bamboo leaf snakes, praying mantises that resembled withered leaves, and frogs that hid in fallen leaves. These companion beasts were clearly not very powerful, but their distribution was very regular. It made it difficult for people to avoid their line of sight, no matter which direction they took. In order to circle around the dimensional creatures, Zhou wasted quite a bit of time on the way. After he passed through the bamboo forest, he saw a building that resembled a bunker in front of the mountain wall. The building was obviously man-made. It was obvious that it was the entrance to the primordial crystal mine. However, there was only one door. There weren't even any windows. It was completely sealed. If he wanted to rush in, he would have to blast open the door and clash with the people from the Bureau. This was the economic lifeline of the Bureau. It was guarded by one of the four censors, Kaijin. According to Nsheng, Kaijin's strength wasn't weaker than Jack's. Furthermore, with the help of other epic experts and their geographical advantage, Zhou didn't think it was a good idea to forcefully barge in. After observing the surrounding terrain, Zhou sneaked to the other side of the valley. He found a depression in the valley and summoned Tyrant Behemoth. The epic Tyrant Behemoth was more than 10 meters tall, like a black mountain. If one looked at it in reality, it would feel even more majestic and terrifying. It felt like a punch could even penetrate a mountain. Tyrant, can you make a slanted hole that leads in that direction? Be careful not to make too much noise. Zhou pointed in the direction of the mine entrance. Tyrant Behemoth could even devour extremely hard essence crystal ores. These ordinary rocks shouldn't be a problem for it. Tyrant Behemoth took action after hearing the order. It lowered its head and lay on the ground. The two horns on its head spun like a huge drill bit as it drilled through the rocks and soil, creating a huge hole. When Zhou saw the soil splatter out, he hurriedly crawled in behind Tyrant Behemoth. Tyrant Behemoth was like a super excavator. It violently drilled through the rocks and constantly advanced underground. However, as there was no place for the excavated gravel and soil, and the tunnel that was opened up was blocked, there was only a space slightly larger than Tyrant Behemoth's. The spot Zhou chose was more than 1,000 meters from the entrance of the Void Crystal Mine. He was originally worried that Tyrant Behemoth would take too long to drill through, but he had clearly underestimated Tyrant Behemoth's strength. This was a fellow known for eating 1,000 mountains a day. Although it hadn't advanced to the mythical stage and couldn't eat a mountain, it wasn't difficult for it to drill a hole in a mountain. After following Tyrant Behemoth underground for more than an hour, Zhou estimated that he was almost at the bottom of the mine, but he didn't see any essence crystal ores appear. Strange, why haven't I seen any essence crystal ores? Logically speaking, if there's a mine here, I should be able to see essence crystal ores nearby. Why isn't there anything? Zhou found it odd. Crack! Just as he was thinking, he heard the sound of rocks cracking above him. Looking down, he saw a few cracks on the top of the tunnel that Tyrant Behemoth had opened up. Faint light seeped through. For some reason, Tyrant Behemoth stopped moving forward when it arrived. It looked up at the rock crack. Could it be that Tyrant Behemoth went too deep diagonally and missed the mine? Zhou made Tyrant Behemoth stop. He stood on Tyrant Behemoth and leaned close to the crack to look inside. There was light inside, but he could only see the ceiling. Truth Listener's power spread out as a huge warehouse appeared in Zhou's mind. There were rows of metal chests inside. The entire warehouse was very large. It was probably more than 1,000 square meters. There were rows of metal chests inside. There were many of them. Could this be the warehouse where they store the essence crystal ores? Zhou's heart stirred as he used Truth Listener's ability to carefully observe. Soon, he discovered that there were indeed quite a number of mini companion beasts hidden in the warehouse. One of them looked like a cricket. It was staring at the crack as though it had sensed something. Zhou knew that he couldn't alarm them. Otherwise, Kaijin and the other people from the Bureau would immediately be alarmed. After some thought, he summoned some blood threadworms. These blood threadworms were obtained from the Zhuolu battlefield. They were even thinner than hair, and it was difficult to discover them with the naked eye. He let the blood threadworms crawl into the warehouse and carefully approached the companion beasts in the warehouse before letting them burrow into their bodies. The companion beasts received their master's orders and stayed motionless, making it easier for Zhou when to take action. The blood threadworms crawled into their bodies and immediately affected their nerves. Although they wouldn't die for a while, they had already become demented. Without any hesitation, Zhou got Tyrant Behemoth to drill open a huge hole as he and his pet crawled into the warehouse. Zhou raised his hand and slashed open the lock of a metal chest. He lifted the lid, and a dazzling light immediately emitted from the chest. It was filled with essence crystals. Holy sh*T. This warehouse probably has more than 1,000 metal chests, right? If they're all filled with essence crystals. Zhou found it unbelievable. As for Tyrant Behemoth, it was already drooling as it stared at the chest of essence crystals that Zhou had opened. Chapter 443. Eat. Eat as much as you can. Zhou ordered Tyrant Behemoth. Tyrant Behemoth roared and swallowed the chest of primordial crystals that Zhou had opened. After chewing a few times, it swallowed them. It wasn't afraid of indigestion. Following that, Tyrant Behemoth didn't even look at them. It opened its mouth and bit the metal chests, crushing them in 2 bites. Its bite force was just too astonishing. It ate metal and primordial crystals like they were jelly beans. Zhou didn't idle either. He opened a few chests and saw that they were filled with primordial crystals. He directly stored them into his chaos bead and placed them in one chest after another. These were all money. Zhou was used to being poor, so he had never seen so many valuable items. Anyway, he was moving them into the chaos bead. It wasn't that he had never seen good things, but those good things were in-game. No matter how many good things he had, he couldn't take them out. These primordial crystals were good things that could be used in the real world. Even if he sold them, he could sell them for a good price. If he needed any companion eggs or primordial energy skill crystals, he wouldn't need to waste time grinding. Now that he had money, he could use it to buy them. Previously, Zhou didn't know that there were so many primordial crystals stored here. He imagined that he had to get Tyrant Behemoth to mine, but to his surprise, it had already dug them up and placed them here. If he had known this would happen, Zhou would have long come. He wouldn't have waited for Tyrant Behemoth to evolve. He could have emptied the place himself. Tyrant Behemoth ate crate after crate, while Zhou would move crate after crate into his chaos space. The man and pet were in a frenzy. At that moment, Zhou suddenly thought of a great person's famous saying, "Working people are the most glorious." Zhou didn't know how many chests he had filled into the chaos bead. Apart from the ones he had moved in, the rest had been devoured by Tyrant Behemoth. He didn't know what this fellow's stomach was made of. After eating nearly 1,000 chests of primordial crystals, its stomach didn't bulge at all. Seeing Tyrant Behemoth look at him longingly, Zhou subconsciously held his chaos bead tightly. Then, he rolled his eyes and said to Tyrant Behemoth, "This is a primordial crystal mine. There must be many unmined primordial crystal mines outside. Let's go eat outside. You can eat as much as you want." Tyrant Behemoth seemed to understand Zhou as its eyes lit up like light bulbs. With a roar, it slammed its head into the ground. No matter how excited you are, you can't hit your head, right? Gluttons are indeed brainless, Zhou thought. However, to everyone's surprise, Tyrant Behemoth slammed its head into the warehouse's ground. The horns on its head spun, opening a huge hole in the rock before burrowing down. Zhou hurriedly followed it. Tyrant Behemoth drilled for a while before suddenly opening its mouth and biting at the rocks. Only then did Zhou realize that essence crystal ores had begun to appear in the surrounding rocks. They were like sparkling stars. Zhou had never seen Tyrant Behemoth use its mountain-devouring skill in a fight, but now he had really seen it. It turned out that its skill wasn't used for fighting, but for eating. Tyrant Behemoth's mouth was like a black hole as it swallowed the rocks mixed with essence crystal ores. It was like a miniature black hole. Zhou was already satisfied with taking so many essence crystals, so he allowed Tyrant Behemoth to devour the essence crystal mine. Shin Yuchi was currently in Kai Jin's office. The Essence Crystal Mine was the economic lifeline of the Bureau. Yuchi had told Kaijin that unless he came personally, no one was allowed to take a single Essence Crystal from here. In order to purchase the Aurora Pith, he had no choice but to use some of the Essence Crystals in his inventory. However, this was just a drop in the bucket compared to the Essence Crystals in his inventory. Yuchi wasn't worried about future financial problems. With the Essence Crystal Mine as his backing, even if he didn't receive any funding for 10 years, the Bureau could still lead a comfortable life. Furthermore, the 6 families definitely wouldn't stop the Bureau's funding next year. After all, there were so many descendants of the 6 families working in the Bureau. Even if he didn't want it, the 6 families would definitely give it to him in the future. Kaijin, it's been hard on you to guard the Essence Crystal Mine all these years. Yuchi had always thought highly of Kaijin. Although he was not the strongest of the 4 sensors, he was the steadiest one. He did things flawlessly. He had guarded the primordial crystal mine for so many years and had never made a single mistake. It could be said that he was very conscientious. Director General, you're welcome. This is what I should do, Kaijin said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. He knew Yuchi's temper. If he appeared to be too proud of himself, he would probably incur Yuchi's displeasure. Yes, wait another 2 years. In 2 years, the position of Deputy Director General will be vacant. I plan on recommending you to take over, Yuchi said. Thank you for your nurturing, Director General. Kaijin was truly delighted this time. The 4 sensors sounded very famous, but in fact, they were Yuchi's subordinates. However, it was different to become the Deputy Director General. He would be in a position of power. Just as Yuchi was about to say something, an inspector suddenly knocked on the door and entered. He reported, Sir, the people guarding the valley entrance have sent news that someone has invaded Don't Cry Valley. Do you know who it is? Kaijin's expression didn't change much. Over the years, various factions had sent countless people to spy on the Essence Crystal Mine, but all of them returned empty-handed. He had seen it too many times. I don't know. That person was too fast. They couldn't see him clearly, but the surveillance cameras captured the scene. They printed it as a photo and brought it with them. With that said, the inspector handed a few photos to Kaijin. After Kaijin received it, he handed it to Yuchi with both hands. With Yuchi around, he naturally had to let him see it first. Yuchi looked at the photo and saw that the person was covered in stone-like armor. He couldn't see the face at all, but he felt that the stone armor was a little familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. Kaijin, what do you think? Yuchi pushed the photo in front of Kaijin. He trusted Kaijin very much. Kaijin looked at the photo and couldn't tell who it was, but he didn't panic. He said with a smile, I've planted many companion beasts in the bamboo forest as informants. Those companion beasts were originally dropped by dimensional creatures in Don't Cry Valley. They aren't affected by the mysterious power of Don't Cry Valley. At the same time, it's very difficult for them to attract the attention of ordinary people. Even if the person can discover a portion of them, it's impossible for him to find all 300 companion beasts. As long as the person is discovered by a companion beast, I will sense it and determine his location. Up to now, none of the companion beasts have reacted. It means that the person hasn't entered the bamboo forest or has already died under the mysterious power of Don't Cry Valley. Chapter 444. Yuchi was very satisfied with Kaijin's answer, but he still said without batting an eyelid, what if the enemy can pass through the bamboo forest and reach the mine? Don't worry, Director General. There are also many rock elemental companion beasts in the mine. It won't be easily discovered. There's no need to mention the warehouse. The companion beasts set up were personally selected by me. They have extremely powerful concealment and reconnaissance abilities. Furthermore, their positions will be adjusted every week to prevent any possible problems, Kaijin said. Okay. Yuchi was rather satisfied with Kaijin's answer. When working in the Bureau, one was most afraid of being careless. If there was any oversight, even a very small problem could trigger a chain reaction and cause huge trouble. Just by looking at Kaijin's arrangements of the mine, One could tell that he was very meticulous. He was indeed a good material. Endure it for another 2 years. In 2 years, we will conquer the world together, Shun Yuchi said as he patted Kai Jin on the shoulder. Kai Jin said respectfully, I'm willing to follow you for life, Director General. Heh. Shun Yuchi didn't comment. All he did was smile as he patted Kai Jin on the shoulder. Let's go to the warehouse to get some primordial crystals. The purchase of the Aurora Pith is very important, so we can only use the warehouse. Kai Jin led the way as he asked, Director General, can the Aurora Pith really advance a holy light angel to the mythical stage? Shun Yuchi nodded and said, those experts have already proven it many times. As long as there's enough Aurora Pith, there's an 80% chance that a holy light angel can advance to the mythical stage. It will be great if it succeeds. Our bureau will have another trump card. We don't have to be subservient to those families anymore, Kai Jin said. Don't spout nonsense. Our bureau is a subordinate organization of the House of Lords. We naturally have to obey the orders of our superiors. Furthermore, it's only a mythical companion beast. Don't tell me you really think you can fight them? Shun Yuchi said indifferently. It was a slip of the tongue, but it's still a ray of hope, Kai Jin said. The primordial crystal mine is our hope. With it, we can exchange for the resources we need. Only then will we have a chance to nurture mythical companion beasts in the future. Watch it well. This is our fate, Shun Yuchi said seriously. Director General, don't worry. As long as the mine exists, we will. Kai Jin made a military pledge. Shun Yuchi was about to say something when he saw an inspector running over in a panic. Why are you so flustered? What did I teach you? Kai Jin reprimanded with a frown. Shun Yuchi hated people who panicked the most when they encountered something. Usually, Kai Jin had never seen his subordinates so crude. Yet, Shun Yuchi had come in such a panic. Wouldn't that make Shun Yuchi think that his subordinates were incompetent? Sir, something happened in the mine. The inspector didn't calm down because of Kai Jin's reprimand. He still said in a panic. What happened? Kai Jin's heart skipped a beat. He immediately had a bad feeling. There could have been a problem at any time, but it had to happen when Shun Yuchi was here. The bottom of the mine has collapsed, and the mine below has been blocked. Our people can't go down now, and we don't know what's going on down there. The inspector briefly explained the situation. A large-scale collapse. Kai Jin heaved a sigh of relief. If it was just a collapse, it wouldn't be a serious problem. At most, they would just have to spend some time digging. Call everyone over. Reinforce the mine first, then dig up the collapsed area. Let's see what happened, Kai Jin instructed. Director General, let's go to the warehouse first, Kai Jin said to Shun Yuchi after making the arrangements. Shun Yuchi nodded and followed Kai Jin to the warehouse. He was quite satisfied with Kai Jin's way of handling things. Accidents would always happen. As long as he had the ability to handle it, it was fine. Soon, the two of them passed through many checkpoints and arrived outside the warehouse. Only when Kai Jin and Shun Yuchi were present could they open the door. Director General, please come in. Kai Jin opened the door and made an inviting gesture. However, before Shun Yuchi could walk in, his gaze landed on the warehouse, and his expression changed drastically. Kaiji, what's going on? Shun Yuchi's expression was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. He stared at Kai Jin with a fierce glint in his eyes. What do you mean, what's going on? Kai Jin looked into the warehouse and was instantly dumbfounded. The warehouse was originally filled with rows of metal boxes, but now, not a single one of them could be seen. The huge warehouse was empty except for 2 huge potholes on the ground. Director General, I really don't know what's going on. The companion beasts I set up are still there. Why isn't there any reaction? Yesterday, I even looked through the observation hole. The primordial crystals are all there. Kai Jin stammered. He knew that the problem was huge. These primordial crystals could be said to be all the Special Inspector Bureau's wealth. Now, more than 1,000 boxes of primordial crystals had disappeared right under his nose. This was a huge crime. Shun Yuchi's face darkened as he didn't say a word. His figure moved like a shadow and instantly entered the warehouse. He stepped into one of the potholes, and a sword beam shot out from his finger, slicing apart the gravel in the pothole as he charged deep into the pothole. Kaijin reacted and chased after him. When he caught up to Shinyuchi, the scene in front of him left him dumbfounded. It was unknown what had dug out a huge space in the huge underground primordial crystal mine. It was as though the middle of a mountain had been hollowed out. There were only a few rocks supporting the upper layer. The other rock, primordial crystal mines were gone. And this area was clearly the area with the most primordial crystal mines that they had already explored. No, impossible. Kaijin was dumbfounded when he saw the top of the building cracking and the huge hole where rocks kept falling. Even if the miners were epic-ranked experts, it would probably take them a year and a half to dig such a huge project. However, if someone had really dug for such a long time, it was impossible for him not to have noticed anything. Director General, I really don't know anything. Kaijin felt his body turn cold. This was a huge calamity. He didn't know how Shinyuchi would deal with him. Shinyuchi ignored him as he stared intently at the constantly collapsing underground hole. He remained motionless. After a while, Shinyuchi suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale as his body swayed. Director General, Kaijin was alarmed as he hurriedly went forward to support Shinyuchi. At that moment, Zhou had already left Don't Cry Valley. He originally wanted Tyrant Behemoth to eat more and leave nothing behind, but to his surprise, Tyrant Behemoth showed signs of evolving as it ate. He was afraid that it would evolve in the mine, and since he didn't know how to dig holes, he wouldn't be able to leave. All he could do was dig out with Tyrant Behemoth. Not long after entering the bamboo forest, Tyrant Behemoth began to evolve. It had eaten too many primordial crystals. Its body constantly emitted crystalline light, turning it back into a companion egg. Chapter 445. Overseer, this matter is a little strange. Although we exposed the information and dealt a certain blow to the Bureau has been biting people everywhere like crazy recently. The reaction seems to be much stronger than we expected, and Sheng said as he looked at the latest intelligence. And Tianzuo was also looking at the information. He shared the same opinion as in Sheng. Something was amiss with the Bureau, making such a big fuss. Just as Sheng was about to say something, his phone suddenly rang. And Sheng looked at the caller ID and said to Tianzuo, "It's my informant on campus." He said that Zhou is back. And Sheng had previously gone to the capital, but he hadn't found Zhou. He was certain that Zhou hadn't gone to the capital, as he didn't know where Zhou had gone and had no direction to investigate, and Sheng could only return to Luoyang. And Tianzuo looked at Sheng without saying a word. And Sheng understood what Tianzuo meant and answered the call. After a while, Sheng hung up and said to Tianzuo, "Zhou has returned to school. Should I give him a call and ask?" "That's your business," Tianzuo said coldly. And Sheng called Zhou. "Young Master One, where have you been the past few days? Madam is very worried about you." Zhou thought for a moment and said, "I went to Don't Cry Valley and took something from there." This matter was too serious, and Zhou knew that he couldn't hide it. Even if the Bureau couldn't find out that he was the one behind it, and Sheng and company will be able to find something in the future. After all, the timing of his disappearance was too coincidental. Instead of waiting for them to find out, he might as well say it first. Don't Cry Valley. Wait, you mean the Bureau's primordial crystal mine? And Sheng said, in surprise, "Mineral deposits are a gift from the land. If the Bureau can take it, I should be able to take it too, right?" Zhou said with a smile. "You really entered Don't Cry Valley's primordial crystal mine? How much did you take?" And Sheng immediately asked. "Not much. I just took some of the reserves and dug some more," Zhou said. And Sheng's expression turned odd. Zhou made it sound simple, but when he thought of the Bureau's recent crazy actions, and Sheng knew that it wasn't as simple as Zhou said. "About how much?" And Sheng asked. "I'm not sure how many there are. I brought back about a few hundred boxes." "One box is about a ton," Zhou said. And Sheng's mouth gaped open as he was rendered speechless. "Stay on campus and don't go anywhere. Don't touch the primordial crystal mine you obtained for now. Don't let anyone know about this." After a long while, and Sheng reacted and exhorted Zhou when before hanging up. Zhou Wen robbed the bureau's primordial crystal mine. It's a huge amount, and Sheng said to Tianzua. I heard it, and Tianzua's expression was somewhat odd. Even he found it unbelievable that a person had snatched hundreds of tons of primordial crystal ores from the bureau. It's no wonder the bureau has gone crazy. How is this a robbery of hundreds of tons of primordial crystal ores? They're trying to take the bureau's life. Young Master One is really daring. He actually succeeded. It's hard to imagine how he did it alone. From the looks of it, his growth is faster than we expected, and Sheng praised. And Tianzuo wasn't in the mood to bicker with Sheng. After some thought, he said, go and deal with the aftermath. Investigate the bureau and see what's going on. Yes. And Sheng also knew that now wasn't the time to say such things. He had to make the best use of his time to wipe away any traces that Zhou Wen might have left behind. He couldn't let the bureau know that it was Zhou Wen who had done it. Half a day later, an intelligence report was placed in front of Tianzua. After Tianzua finished reading it, his expression turned increasingly complicated. And Sheng also wore a strange expression as he looked at Tianzua and said, according to the intelligence, Kai Jin has been transferred back. Many experts from the bureau at the primordial crystal mine have also been transferred back. Only a few people are left behind. Young Master One isn't robbing. He's clearly digging up the bureau's roots. And Tianzua burned the information and threw it into the trash can. Do what you need to do. Pretend this never happened. Yes, and Sheng replied solemnly. That brat really dares to do it. When Tianzua was the only one left in the office, he looked at Zhou Wen's information on the computer and muttered to himself with an odd expression. After Zhou Wen returned to school, he had a comfortable sleep. After waking up, he continued his grinding. With the demon dragon true body, Zhou Wen could finally attempt to challenge mythical creatures. Although it was only for 10 seconds, he wouldn't be killed so easily when he went to the temple in the ruins. However, against the mythical creatures guarding the temple, Zhou Wen still needed to use some primordial energy skills to avoid being killed while in the demon dragon true body. In fact, he didn't last 10 seconds. Although switching to Slaughterer could replenish his primordial energy, switching back to the ancient Sovereign Sutra and then using the demon dragon true body required time. This time was enough for the mythical creatures to kill the blood-colored avatar. Although he could only last a few seconds, Zhou Wen finally wasn't one-sidedly slaughtered. At the very least, in these few seconds, he could fight mythical creatures head-on. This meant that Zhou Wen might discover their weaknesses. Of course, this required repeated attempts at death. If Zhou Wen wasn't in a hurry to enter the temple to find the former principal, he wouldn't have been in such a rush. There were 2 temples on the left and right. The creature in one of the temples looked like a wolf or tiger. It had a pair of wings on its back, and its speed was unbelievably fast. Even in the demon dragon true body state, Zhou Wen had to use ghost steps to keep up with its speed. The amount of time he could last was too short. In the other temple, there was a mythical creature that resembled a snake. It could spew out large amounts of poisonous gas, but its speed was much slower than the other mythical creature. In the demon dragon true body state, Zhou Wen could barely keep up with its speed without using ghost steps. Therefore, Zhou Wen placed his focus on the snake. However, with Zhou Wen's poison resistance and the strengthening of the demon dragon true body, he still couldn't withstand the snake's terrifying poison. Zhou Wen could clearly sense the symptoms of being poisoned. However, before the poison took effect, he would be killed. It didn't matter if he was poisoned or not. Apart from poison, the snake had a few other abilities. The other abilities were all right. At the very least, Zhou Wen could understand them. As long as he understood them, he had a chance of cracking them. However, the snake had an ability that Zhou Wen couldn't understand at all. Every time the snake's eyes turned into mirrors, as long as it glanced at the blood-colored avatar, the blood-colored avatar would be reflected in its eyes before dying. No matter how fast Zhou Wen's movement technique was, it was impossible for him to be so fast that the snake couldn't see the blood-colored avatar. Therefore, every time the snake used this skill, the blood-colored avatar would definitely die. Zhou Wen tried many times, but he failed to figure out what was going on. Chapter 446. After Zhou woke up in the morning and ate breakfast, he bought some for Wang Lu. "You're back." Wang Lu opened the door and asked in surprise. "I came back yesterday." Zhou entered and placed the breakfast on the table. "Has the matter been resolved?" Wang Lu asked. "It's about time." Zhou's mood improved a little, but he didn't know if the bureau would let the matter rest. "That's good. Let's settle the accounts from before. You owe me a lot of breakfasts. You have to compensate me with lunch." Wang Lu seriously counted with her fingers how many breakfasts Zhou owed her. After delivering breakfast to Wang Lu, Zhou went to the Xianwen Club. "I say, old Zhou, why do you always go missing? Can't you call me along if there's anything fun?" Li Xian said with a smile. "I caused some trouble, so I went out to hide. How can it be fun?" Zhou said with a helpless shrug. As the two of them spoke, they saw Feng Shuyan, Ming Xiao, and a girl walk in. Zhou knew Ming Xiao, but he didn't know why he was at the Xianwen Club. He shouldn't be a member. However, Zhou still felt somewhat guilty towards Ming Xiao. After all, he was his tutor, but ever since he came, he hadn't done anything. "Zhou, you're finally back. Are you free now?" Ming Xiao's eyes lit up when he saw Zhou. "What's the matter?" Zhou felt that if Ming Xiao had any problems as a tutor, he should give him some help. "I've recently practiced a set of sword techniques. I want your guidance," Ming Xiao said. Although he was getting Zhou's guidance, Ming Xiao was very confident in his sword techniques. Ever since he saw Zhou's transcendent flying immortal, Ming Xiao had been inspired. He had been studying and improving the sword techniques his father had left behind. After his constant improvements and actual combat practice with Feng Shuyan, Ming Xiao felt that his sword techniques were rather perfect. They weren't inferior to Zhou's transcendent flying immortal. "All right," Zhou nodded in agreement. Feng Shuyan was also very interested. He knew that Zhou had already advanced to the epic stage. If it was a life-and-death battle, Ming Xiao was definitely no match for Zhou. However, sparring with swords was different from a battle of life and death. It was only a battle of swords, not strength, speed, and other aspects. Therefore, Feng Shuyan felt that Ming Xiao should still have a chance. During this period of time, he had been practicing with Ming Xiao. He knew that Ming Xiao's swordsmanship had improved greatly. Apart from the difference in level, Ming Xiao's swordsmanship was not inferior to his swordsmanship. When Ming Xiao and Zhou fought, he could watch Zhou's progress from the side. Everyone went to the training grounds together. As they watched the two of them change into their combat uniforms and face each other with swords used for practice, Tian Jinjin asked nervously, "Feng Shuyan, what do you think Ming Xiao's chances of winning are?" Ming Xiao's sword art had indeed improved greatly, but Tian Jinjin always felt that Ming Xiao's sword art was too simple. It wasn't as domineering and gorgeous as Zhou's transcendent flying immortal. "I don't know." Feng Shuyan shook his head. If it was the sword technique that Zhou had used in the past, coupled with Zhou's lack of understanding of Ming Xiao's sword techniques, Feng Shuyan felt that Ming Xiao had a chance of winning. However, he and Ming Xiao were improving, so Zhou definitely wouldn't remain in the same spot. Therefore, Feng Shuyan couldn't tell the outcome. However, deep in his heart, he believed that Zhou would definitely win. However, Feng Shuyan couldn't say such things without evidence. Is there a need to say it? No one can defeat old Zhou. It's just a matter of how many strikes Ming Xiao can last under old Zhou's hands. Li Xian was filled with confidence in Zhou. "TCH, how would you know if you haven't fought?" "I think Ming Xiao will definitely win," Tian Jinjin immediately retorted. "Please advise me." Ming Xiao held the sword used for practice and did a ceremonial stance before sheathing the sword. "Please." Zhou didn't hold the scabbard. All he did was hold the sword in his hand and point it diagonally at the ground. Ming Xiao's expression didn't change, but his aura became calmer and calmer. It was as though his entire body had fused with the air. If one didn't see him with their eyes, they wouldn't be able to sense his existence. A sword beam appeared. After extreme stillness came extreme movement. The practice sword tore out of its scabbard and struck out with an earth-shattering strike. It was fast and powerful, as though the sword had pierced through the heavens. It was different from Feng Qiuyan's swift saber. Although Feng Qiuyan's swift saber could exceed one's limits, it was restrained. It was ultimately about control. However, Ming Xiu's sword technique wasn't like that. It was as though he wanted to erupt with all the radiance of his life in this strike, squeezing out every ounce of his strength. Every cell seemed to erupt with all its energy. Either he died or he died. There was no return from this strike. There was no control, no hesitation, and no way out. It was as though he had bet his entire life on this strike. Although it wasn't brilliant, he had the determination to go all the way. Although it was only a single strike, he gave it everything he had. He couldn't control it, nor did he need to. As long as the sword existed, he existed. If the sword died, he would die. The one who fell was either the enemy or himself. When Li Xian saw this strike, his expression turned solemn. He muttered to himself, "This person has bet his life on this strike. Is it worth it?" Zhou Wen stared at the earth-shattering strike, but the practiced sword in his hand didn't move. He could sense Ming Xiu's determination from his sword. Ah! Tian Jinjin screamed in fright when she saw that Zhou Wen didn't seem to react. He didn't raise his sword to meet the attack. Although it was a special rubber sword used for practice, it was edgeless and curved. If it was augmented by Ming Xiu's sword technique, even a practice sword could probably pierce through flesh. Feng Qiuyan and Li Xian's expressions changed as well. They didn't know what was wrong with Zhou Wen for him to not react in time. The sword flashed like the wind as Ming Xiu's practice sword brushed past Zhou Wen's neck. The blade was about to touch the skin on Zhou Wen's neck, but it ultimately failed to injure him. "Why aren't you retaliating?" Ming Xiu asked Zhou Wen with a frown. "You didn't stab me. Why should I retaliate?" Zhou Wen said casually. Ever since he sensed the power of spatial trajectories, he had become very sensitive to all sorts of trajectories. Others might not be able to tell the minute difference in trajectories because Ming Xiu's sword was too fast, but Zhou Wen could see it clearly. The strike wouldn't injure him at all. Ming Xiu was stunned when he heard Zhou Wen's words. He looked at Zhou Wen in a daze and didn't say a word. After a long while, Ming Xiu's eyes slowly turned resolute. He slowly retracted the sword on Zhou Wen's neck and sheathed it. He bowed slightly at Zhou Wen and said seriously, "Coach, I understand. In the future, I won't casually strike. I won't strike unless I have to kill." With that said, Ming Xiu turned around and left. This left Zhou Wen somewhat taken aback. He didn't know what was wrong with Ming Xiu. First, he didn't stab him before leaving for some baffling reason. Chapter 447. Ming Xiu, what's going on? Why did you leave without fighting? Tian Jinjin chased after him and asked. "It's already over," Ming Xiu said. "It's over? How can that be? Didn't you just stab once? How did it end?" "I understand. Zhou Wen couldn't dodge your sword, so he lost, right?" Tian Jinjin fired off a barrage of questions. "Of course not. I lost. Feng Qiuyan is right. Coach is no longer on the same level as us. He saw through my weakness at a glance and used his actions to tell me where it was," Ming Xiu said. "What weakness?" Tian Jinjin really couldn't figure out what Ming Xiu was talking about. All she saw was Zhou Wen standing there without doing anything. As it was a spar, I deviated a little when I attacked. I was afraid that I would really harm him. As for Coach, he saw through my hesitation at a glance, so he didn't attack at all, Ming Xiu said. "That's normal. Just continue sparring. Why did you admit defeat?" Tian Jinjin still didn't understand. Ming Xiu shook his head and said, "There's no need to compete. If Coach was an enemy, he would have seen through my hesitation. If he had attacked back then, I would have already lost. He didn't draw his sword because he was telling me that since I've entrusted my entire life to this sword, then before I draw my sword, I should be sure if I really want to kill this person. If I'm not sure, then I shouldn't draw my sword because if I have doubts in my heart, then I'll definitely lose. If I can't be sure when I draw my sword, then I shouldn't draw my sword." "But weren't you sparring?" Isn't it normal to show mercy? Tian Jinjin said. This is where Coach is superior to others. It's very obvious that he's telling me that there's no such thing as a drill in life. What's in the past is in the past. There's no chance for me to do it again. Since I've entrusted my life to my sword, what's the point of sparring? I have to risk my life when I attack. There's no second chance. My sword Dao cultivation is indeed lacking. I actually wanted to spar with Coach. In fact, when I had this thought, I was already defeated. From today onwards, unless I can confirm that I want to kill an enemy, I will never draw my sword again, Ming Xiu said seriously. From the looks of it, coming to Sunset College was the right decision. You have really grown a lot, Tian Jinjin said to Ming Xiu. Yes, it's my good fortune to be able to meet Coach. It's a pity that we only have 3 months here. I can't learn more from Coach. Ming Xiu nodded. Zhou didn't know what Ming Xiu was thinking, but he found it somewhat baffling. He originally wanted to see how Ming Xiu's sword techniques were, but to his surprise, he fled after stabbing once. However, Ming Xiu's sword strike was truly breathtaking. That kind of sword technique, which he had staked everything on, had a shock that made people's scalps go numb. When two enemies meet on a narrow path, the courageous one wins. A sword technique like Ming Xiu's was the easiest to win against a truly strong opponent, but it was also the easiest to die. From Zhou 1, Ming Xiu understood the principle of not drawing his sword, greatly reducing the possibility of him dying. This resulted in the future famous swordsman of tomorrow. Zhou realized that his strength and speed were stronger than Ming Xiu's, and his sword techniques weren't inferior to Ming Xiu's. However, no matter how he struck, he didn't have Ming Xiu's decisiveness. Even if he used all his strength, he would only maximize his strength. He didn't have that kind of decisiveness. Coach, since we're already here, why don't you spar with me? Feng Shuyan said to Zhou when as he left the arena with his saber in hand. He didn't use a practice saber because he already had absolute confidence in his saber techniques. No matter how intense the battle was, he wouldn't accidentally injure Zhou 1. All right, just as Zhou 1 was feeling somewhat at a loss, Feng Shuyan jumped out himself. He didn't shirk and slashed at him. In fact, Zhou 1 hadn't practiced his sword techniques much. With his transcendent flying immortal, coupled with his movement techniques, he could basically take down his enemies in one move. There was no need for so many moves. One move was enough. This was actually the same as Ming Xiu. The two of them didn't draw their swords, but when they did, they would use all their strength. However, due to their different personalities, their sword techniques differed greatly. Zhou 1's movement techniques and sword techniques were too fast. They were so fast that even Feng Shuyan couldn't keep up with him. All he could do was passively swing his saber to block. Ming Xiu and Tian Jinjin, who were outside, heard the sounds in the training grounds and knew that Zhou 1 and company were sparring. They walked in again and saw the two of them fighting. Tian Jinjin said in surprise, Feng Shuyan is actually suppressed to the point that he can only defend. She had never seen Feng Shuyan use a defensive stance. Feng Shuyan often sparred with Ming Xiu. No matter how strong Ming Xiu's sword techniques were, Feng Shuyan would choose to attack. He had never been at a disadvantage. But now, Feng Shuyan didn't even have a chance to counterattack under Zhou 1's sword techniques. Ming Xiu said as he watched, Coach's sword techniques are indeed faster and stronger than mine. Furthermore, he still has strength to spare, unlike me. I use all my strength the moment I strike. I can't control it all. He hasn't used his full strength? Tian Jinjin was even more alarmed. He had suppressed Feng Shuyan to such a state, yet he hadn't used his full strength. How strong would he be when he used his full strength? Zhou constantly used transcendent flying immortal. Although it was only one move, when combined with different movement techniques and attacks from different angles, the effects were different. However, this fellow, Feng Shuyan, had practically trained his saber techniques into a turtle shell. His defense was impenetrable. If one only used sword techniques, they actually could not break through his defense. Although they could suppress Feng Shuyan, there was no way to defeat him. Feng Shuyan was also suppressed to the point that he didn't have the ability to counterattack. After exchanging more than 100 strikes, Zhou couldn't fight freely. He found it boring, so he sheathed his sword and retreated. It's boring. I'm not playing anymore. It's because I'm not strong enough that coach can enjoy himself. Don't worry, I'll continue working hard, Feng Shuyan said seriously. Then continue working hard. Zhou placed the sword back on the rack and left the training grounds with Li Xian. Old Zhou, you've already advanced to the epic stage. What's the point of studying in school? Have you considered what to do after graduation? Li Xian and Zhou, when asked casually as they walked on the campus path. Find a job related to dimensional zones. It's best if you can game at work, Zhou said without thinking. When you graduate, you'll be 20 years old. Although not everyone dares to hire you because of Wang Mingyuan, there will definitely be many people in Luoyang who are willing to hire you. Your request isn't a problem, but do you really plan on living like this for the rest of your life? Li Xian said seriously as he looked at Zhou. Chapter 448. I think it's pretty good. Why can't I? Zhou wasn't someone who liked to think too far ahead. His biggest goal, now, was to save the former principal and find a stable place to live his days. He could then raise his strength. Even if the dimensional zone seal failed in the future, he could still protect himself and his friends and family. You definitely know that breakout creatures are appearing more and more frequently. The breakout creature that appeared in our school last time destroyed the library. There's also that sky spider that nearly destroyed Luoyang City. In the future, this world will only become more and more chaotic. What kind of job can you find to live a stable life? Li Xian asked. Zhou thought about it and realized that it made sense. The world had become a monster amusement park, so how could there be any free place to work? Then what do you want to do after graduation? Zhou asked Li Xian. I want to build a city myself and gather many powerful humans. I want to build a castle that will never be breached. The city will be filled with my family and friends. I can protect their safety, Li Xian said. Aren't your thoughts the same as mine? Zhou said with a smile. How can that be the same? I'm taking the initiative to attack. While you're passively taking a beating, Li Xian curled his lips and said disdainfully. All right, then let's make an agreement here. In the future, when you build the city, leave me a room. That way, I'll have a place to stay, Zhou said. Then you'll have to wait. Without the standards of top epic, it's impossible to build a city. I haven't even touched the door to the epic stage. Who knows when I'll become a top epic, Li Xian said with a smile. I believe you can definitely do it, Zhou said seriously. All right, just because of that, let's make an agreement. When I build the city in the future, I'll leave you the best yard so that you can stay comfortably, Li Xian said generously. The two of them chatted as they walked. However, most of the time, Zhou was listening to Li Xian talk about his future ideals. He didn't seem to have many pursuits himself. The only time he felt a sense of accomplishment was when his level increased and his abilities increased. It's my father's birthday today. Let's go together. Just treat it as a free meal. It'll be a waste not to eat it. Li Xian pulled Zhou out of the school. Although Li Xian didn't like Li Mabai very much, it wasn't convenient for him to fall out with Li Mabai in front of his grandfather. Apart from Li Xian and Li Mabai, Old Master Li had adopted many godsons and goddaughters. Furthermore, all the famous figures in Luoyang had come to congratulate him. Even in Tianzhua had sent someone to deliver a congratulatory gift. The Li family was especially lively today. You really don't need to buy a gift. Zhou had been pulled over by Li Xian. He didn't buy any gifts and came to the Li family empty-handed. Why are you still bringing gifts? You are already giving me face by coming. Who doesn't know that you are Ouyang Land's most beloved son? Even in Jing isn't as doted on as you. Li Xian pointed to the buffet table and said, Eat as much as you want. Drink as much as you want as long as you don't get drunk. That won't happen. I don't drink, Zhou said. I'll go over to take a look. Eat by yourself. Call me if there's anything, Li Xian said as he went to the other side. Zhou didn't know anyone, so he didn't need to worry. He took his food and drinks and continued eating. Zhou, we meet again. Have you considered the matter I mentioned to you the last time? Li Mabai walked over and said to Zhou Wen with a smile. Didn't I already give you an answer? Zhou Wen said indifferently. Aren't you going to reconsider? Li Mabai asked with a smile. There's no need, Zhou Wen answered with certainty. That's such a pity. Li Mabai shook his head slightly before leaving. After Li Mabai left, Zhou Wen didn't take the matter to heart and continued eating. Zhou Wen and Li Xian had originally agreed to return to school together after the birthday banquet, but Zhou Wen didn't see Li Xian again. Even when the banquet was about to end, he still didn't see Li Xian. No one picked up his call. Could something have happened to Li Xian? Zhou Wen's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. However, this was the Li family. Who could touch Li Xian here? Even if it was Li Mabai, he probably wouldn't have the guts to touch Li Xian in front of old Master Li, right? However, Zhou Wen felt somewhat uneasy. He immediately used the Truth Listener Earring's ability to search the Li family manor, hoping to find Li Xian. At that moment, in a secret chamber, Li Xian woke up in a daze. His vision gradually cleared before he realized that his entire body was bound by a strange metal chain. His body was fixed to a metal chair, and Li Mabai was standing in front of him. Li Mabai, what are you trying to do? Aren't you afraid that old master will know about you attacking me here? Li Xian glared fiercely at Li Mabai. I don't think you're fully awake. Do you want me to help you recall how you came here? Li Mabai said with a smile. I wasn't. As Li Xian spoke, his expression changed. He gradually recalled what had happened. He had been at the banquet, but Li Weiyang had called him and said that she was at the back door of the Li family's compound. As she was an illegitimate daughter, Li Weiyang didn't even have the right to attend the Li family's birthday banquet. Li Xian went out to meet Li Weiyang. Li Weiyang said that she had a gift for old Master Li, but it wasn't convenient for her to give it to him. Li Xian naturally agreed, but after receiving the gift, he, who was completely defenseless against Li Weiyang, fainted. When he woke up, he was here. What did you do to Sis Weiyang? Li Mabai, if you dare touch a strand of her hair, I won't let you off. Li Xian stared at Li Mabai and said fiercely. Li Mabai laughed and pinched Li Xian's face with one hand. Li Xian, oh Li Xian, you're still so stupid. You don't know how dangerous this world is. I originally thought that you were pretending to be a pig in the past, but from the looks of it, you really are a pig. As he spoke, Li Mabai released Li Xian and pressed the button on the remote control in his hand. Then, Li Xian saw the wall in front of him gradually turn transparent. It turned out that it wasn't a real wall, but a mirror. After the electric curtains outside the mirror were pulled open, one could see the room opposite. Li Xian's gaze landed on the opposite room, and immediately saw Li Weiyang inside. Chapter 449. Li Mabai, what are you trying to do? Li Xian gritted his teeth as he stared at Li Mabai. Nothing. After all, you're my brother. Even if I die, I have to let you die knowing. As Li Mabai spoke, he picked up the walkie-talkie and said, Li Weiyang, you did well on this matter. Li Weiyang clearly couldn't see the room next door. When she heard Li Mabai's voice, she immediately looked around in panic and realized that the voice was coming from the speaker in the room. Only then did she say excitedly into the speaker, I've already done what you asked me to do. Please remove the goo poison from my body. Li Mabai glanced at Li Xian and continued, Li Xian usually treats you so well, but you actually handed him to me. Don't you know what will happen to him if he falls into my hands? Li Xian originally wanted to say something, but when he heard Li Mabai's question, he fell silent. Through the mirror on the wall, he looked at Li Weiyang in another room. Li Weiyang said with a pale face, I know I've let Li Xian down, but I just want to live. I have no choice. He's your brother, Li Mabai said in a mocking tone. I have no choice either. I'm just an illegitimate daughter, but he's the high and mighty third young master of the Li family. We aren't from the same world to begin with. He treats me well only because he's putting on an act for others to see. He's pitiful and charitable. Li Weiyang said. When Li Xian heard that, the color in his face drained. He had always treated Li Weiyang as his biological sister, but he never expected her to say such a thing. Although his life was in danger, Li Xian still couldn't accept those words. Li Mabai didn't say a word as he looked at Li Xian. Li Weiyang turned anxious. I've already done what you asked me to do. You said that you would remove the goo poison from my body. Quickly remove it from me. Li Weiyang slammed the table in excitement. Her voice sounded agitated, but it also had a pleading tone. Of course, I, Li Mabai, will definitely keep my promise. However, you still have to do one last thing for me. After doing this, you can regain your freedom, Li Mabai said. What else do you want me to do? Li Weiyang asked loudly. Li Weiyang, you should know that as long as someone knows, there are no absolute secrets. If I release you now, there will come a day when you will tell everyone that I killed Li Xian, Li Mabai said calmly. No. I definitely won't say anything. I won't say anything. You have to believe me. Li Weiyang waved her hands in panic, her face filled with fear. I don't like having my fate in the hands of others. It's easy for me to let you go unless you personally kill Li Xian. Only then can I feel at ease letting you go. I don't have to worry about you snitching when you leave. If you snitch, you will be the first to die, Li Mabai said. No. I can't do that. Li Weiyang shook her head as she retreated. Of course, you have the right to choose, but if you don't do it, I can only let you die here. Only a dead person can keep a secret, Li Mabai said. You can't do this to me. Li Weiyang's face contorted as she looked conflicted. Suddenly, Li Weiyang clutched her stomach and fell to the ground, her expression filled with pain. The goo poison has already taken effect. You don't have much time left, Li Mabai said expressionlessly. I promise you, Li Weiyang said in pain. Li Xian felt as though he had been struck by lightning as his expression turned extremely ugly. Sorry, you agreed too late. I've changed my mind. A dead person can keep a secret better, Li Mabai said as he touched the ring on his finger. As Li Mabai spoke, he touched the ring on his finger. Li Weiyang immediately convulsed. In just a moment, she rolled her eyes and foamed at the mouth. She looked like she was on the verge of death. Stop. She's already promised you. Why do you still want to kill her? Li Xian shouted. Li Mabai said indifferently. Because I never planned on letting her leave alive. Only a dead person can truly keep a secret. This world is just that cruel. With that said, Li Mabai extended his hand in front of Li Xian. In his palm was a strange bug. The bug looked like a centipede, but it had a scorpion's tail. There were 4 transparent wings on its back, and its head looked a little like a cricket. It looked very strange. Do you know what this is? Li Mabai said with a smile. Seeing Li Xian glaring at him with blood-red eyes, Li Mabai continued. This is a strange companion beast. Its name is life-snatching goo. However, don't worry. It won't really take your life. The life it takes is only your life providence. Then it can transfer your life providence to me, allowing me to have 2 life providences. You want my life providence? Since you want my life providence so much, why don't you cultivate the invincible Khanate divine art yourself? Li Xian looked at Li Mabai in a daze. Li Mabai revealed a strange smile. That's because cultivating the invincible Khanate divine art requires one to be a virgin. If I cultivate it, the Li family won't have a successor. However, you're different. If you cultivate the invincible Khanate divine art, then I can steal your life providence. I don't need to maintain my virginity and can still have your life providence. Although it's not as powerful as cultivating the invincible Khanate divine art myself, it's enough. Without waiting for Li Mabai to speak, Li Mabai continued, My talent is better than yours and my abilities are stronger than yours. The old man made you cultivate the invincible Khanate divine art for me. Impossible. You are lying, Li Xian said loudly. I'm lying? Everyone knows that those who cultivate the invincible Khanate divine art can't have any descendants. Even the original owner of the invincible Khanate divine art, the Xia family, doesn't cultivate it. Yet, the old man is getting you to cultivate it. Do you think this is something a father would do? Li Mabai said with a smile. I was the one who wanted to cultivate the invincible Khanate divine art. It has nothing to do with the old man, Li Xian said. Did you really want to cultivate it? Do you still remember who told you how powerful the invincible Khanate divine art was when you were young, and how impressive the Xia family's patriarch was? Li Mabai continued with a smile. Ever since you were young, everyone has told you how powerful the invincible Khanate divine art is. It has subtly influenced you to think that it's nothing to be a virgin your entire life in order to cultivate such a primordial energy art, right? Li Xian wanted to retort, but recalling his childhood, it did seem to be the case. Everyone, including the old man, had told him that the invincible Khanate divine art was very powerful and invincible. If he mastered it, he could become a hero of the world. Therefore, from a young age, he felt that cultivating the invincible Khanate divine art was a heroic act. Now that Li Mabai had pointed it out, Li Xian felt his body turn cold. Impossible. It's impossible for the old man to do this to me. I'm his son. It's impossible for him to do this to me. Li Xian seemed to be trying to convince himself. If you're really his son, of course it's impossible. Unfortunately, you aren't. You have always thought that you were his biological son, but in fact, you aren't. You're just a tool prepared for me. It's been hard on you. After all these years, it's time for your mission to be completed, Li Mabai said as he placed the life-reaping goo on Li Xian's face. The life-reaping goo automatically burrowed into Li Xian's nose. Li Xian felt as though his body was being sliced by a knife wherever the life-reaping goo crawled past. Soon, the pain reached his heart. At the same time, he felt a strange force spread throughout his body. My good brother, thank you for all your years of hard cultivation. I will treat your life providence well. In the future, when my name shakes the world, your life providence will also become famous with me. As my brother, you should be very happy, right? Li Mabai's finger slid across Li Xian's forehead. His finger emitted a strange light as though it had stabbed into Li Xian's head. Bastard! You bastard! Li Xian felt as though countless steel needles were stabbing into his head, as though they were about to pull out his brain. Li Xian struggled with all his might, but the metal chain had a strange effect. Not only did it lock his body, but it also blocked the circulation of his primordial energy. Don't be so rude. The Li family has raised you for so many years after all. You should be grateful. Li Mabai continued. By the way, you have a very good classmate named Zhou, right? You're quite pitiful. You can't get close to women, so you actually like men. Forget it. In the future, I'll use your life providence to kill him and let him accompany you. Li Xiao. Bye. As though it was the last straw that broke the camel's back, Li Xian's eyes turned blood red. All his primordial energy erupted like a blood flame as it burned crazily. All his bones and muscles swelled as his hair stood on end. A blood-colored carapace appeared on his body, forming a strange armor. For transparent blood wings spread out behind him, making him look like a fiend celestial. On his body, a scarlet shadow condensed like a devil from ancient times as it attached itself to Li Xian's body. Crack! The metal chain that bound his body and primordial energy snapped inch by inch, no longer able to restrain his body. Li Xiaobai, I'll kill you. Li Xian stared at Li Mabai with blood-red eyes as he roared angrily. The blood-red shadow on his body roared as well, as though it was a devil possessing him. He didn't even call Li Mabai by his name and directly called him by his real name, Li Xiaobai. Come on, let me see what you have to kill me, Li Mabai said as his eyes shimmered with fervor. Die! Killing intent burned in Li Xian's eyes as the sanguine light on his body erupted. The devil behind him roared as his fist punched at Li Mabai with the power of blood flames. Boom! The blood-red light exploded in the secret room, turning the entire room into ruins. Chapter 450. Li Mabai widened his eyes as he leaned against the shattered wall. Li Xian's fist brushed past his head and struck the wall. The terrifying force caused the entire chamber's metal walls to shatter like they were in ruins. Ha! Li Mabai slapped Li Xian in the face and said disdainfully, You're still so cowardly and useless. You still don't dare kill me at this stage? Why did you do so much? Why did you give me your life soul? That's not a life-robbing goo. It's your life soul, Li Xian said as he stared at Li Mabai. Did I still fail? Li Mabai was extremely disappointed. He leaned against the wall and slowly sat down. The glow on his body was gradually fading. What do you mean? Li Xian looked at Li Mabai and asked through gritted teeth. Li Mabai sighed and said, Why can't you be heartless at this stage? Don't you have any anger in your heart? Even if I'm in hell, I won't become a devil. Li Mabai, what are you trying to do? Li Xian asked again. Li Mabai closed his eyes and said, Do you still remember brother? Of course. Why are you mentioning brother? Li Xian said, Brother's talent is peerless, far above yours and mine. He's in no way inferior to the families in Tianzhua. If he could live to this day, our Li family definitely wouldn't be in this state. It wouldn't be difficult for us to become a true powerhouse, Li Mabai said. He's already been dead for so many years. What's the point of saying this now? Li Xian frowned. Don't you want to know how brother died? Li Mabai opened his eyes and stared at Li Xian. Wasn't brother killed by a dimensional creature when he was hunting dimensional creatures in a dimensional zone? Li Xian's heart stirred as he vaguely felt that this matter wasn't that simple. Killed by a dimensional creature? That's not wrong. Humans are the dirtiest dimensional creatures, Li Mabai said mockingly. What do you mean? Are you saying that brother was killed by someone? It wasn't an accident? Li Xian stared at Li Mabai. Of course it wasn't an accident. Back then, before brother left, he once told me personally that he was going to Dragon Gate Grotto's Lotus Flower Cave to hunt fairies. He wanted to obtain a fairy companion egg for my birthday present. Li Mabai closed his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, But when he died, he was in Old Dragon Cave. Back then, I suspected why he was in Old Dragon Cave. He shouldn't have gone there. Brother is a man of his word. Since he promised to give me the fairy companion egg, he will definitely be in Lotus Flower Cave. He won't leave before obtaining the fairy companion egg. I didn't dare tell anyone about this because I was too young and weak at the time. I didn't have the ability to do anything. I could only bury this matter in my heart and wait until I grew up and had the power to slowly investigate. Li Mabai continued, In order to make myself stronger, I chose to cultivate the evil Gu Sutra. It gave me the power to control Gu. I could use this as a foundation to control some people. Slowly, I finally found some clues. All the targets pointed to a behemoth. That faction was just too powerful, so powerful that it left one in despair. Even if I used all my strength, I couldn't shake that behemoth. Who are they? Li Xian asked Li Mabai. The Xia family. Li Mabai spat out 2 words. The Xia family that gave us the invincible Khanate divine art. Li Xian looked at Li Mabai in surprise. Invincible Khanate divine art? That's a joke. The invincible Khanate divine art they gave you is an incomplete version. If it wasn't for your outstanding talent, it would be impossible for you to achieve anything no matter how much you cultivate. Thankfully, the heavens have eyes and allowed you to use the incomplete, invincible Khanate divine art to condense a high-level life providence like the immortal god of combat. However, this isn't enough. Although you are already very strong, you are still far inferior to brother. Furthermore, the flaws of the invincible Khanate divine art are too obvious. With your personality, if you really meet a woman you like, you will probably give up everything for her, right? Li Xian was somewhat speechless. He might really do that. And the Xia family has never lacked women who can move one's heart, Li Mabai said disdainfully. So, are you going to make me be heartless? There's no need for you to do that. As long as you tell me about brother, I can do it. There's no need for you to treat Wei Yong like that, Li Xian said through gritted teeth. It's not just because of that. If you want to be enemies with the Xia family and destroy them, you and I aren't strong enough. No matter how talented you are, to be able to cultivate an incomplete, invincible Khanate divine art to its limits and be as strong as the Xia family's hero from back then, you still won't be able to touch the Xia family. Li Mabai opened his eyes as a cold glint flashed in them. After some thought, there's only one way for us to have a chance of fighting the Xia family. In the evil Gu Sutra I cultivate, there's a transfer method. It's like raising a daughter and marrying someone else after she reaches adulthood. I'll transfer my life soul, evil King Gu, to you and let it help you condense a life soul. After absorbing the evil King Gu, your life soul will no longer be condensed purely from the invincible Khanate divine art. It will subtly influence you, causing your body and life providence to change, making you stronger than the pure, invincible Khanate divine art. It will also no longer have the fatal flaw of the invincible Khanate divine art. Only then will you have a chance to shake the Xia family in the future. However, cultivating the evil Gu Sutra requires you to be heartless. Otherwise, it will leave behind a huge problem. And if you want to obtain the recognition of my life soul, evil King Gu, and completely transfer it to you, you need to have a heartless heart. At the very least, at the moment of fusion, you have to be indifferent to your family. Only then can you make the evil King Gu willingly sacrifice itself to marry you. When the Mabai said that, he closed his eyes again. If I really kill you, if I'm really heartless, then who will tell me about Big Brother? I don't know anything. What's the point of everything you do? Li Xian felt that Li Mabai was being too paranoid. Me. A voice came from the next room. As the secret chamber had been destroyed by mystic smashing, the mirror wall had also shattered. The Li Weiyang, who had fallen to the ground and died, had actually stood up alive. However, her face had undergone a strange change. Slowly, she no longer looked like Li Weiyang. Her face was completely that of an unfamiliar woman. Her name is Butterfly. She was supposed to tell you everything after I died and help you continue down this path until you destroy the Xia family. But now, it's useless, Li Mabai said as he struggled to stand up. Li Xian subconsciously wanted to help Li Mabai, but Li Mabai reached out and pushed him away. He said indifferently, "There's no need to help me. Since you have failed, I'll continue down this path." But you, Li Xian wanted to say that his life soul was gone and the evil Gu Sutra was crippled. He was already an ordinary person without any cultivation. How was he to continue down this path? There are no buts. Even if it's hell, I'll walk the path to the netherworld again. Li Mabai propped himself up and staggered out the door. He was weak but firm. If Li Xian was said to be in hell and had a heart of light, then Li Mabai was the person who walked towards hell. Chapter 451. When Zhou Wen found Li Xian, he saw him sitting alone in the garden in a daze. "What's wrong? What are you doing here alone?" Zhou Wen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Li Xian was fine. He walked over and asked with a smile. Li Xian turned his head to look at Zhou Wen. The look in his eyes was somewhat different from before. "Zhou Wen, I want to become stronger. I want to become stronger than everyone," Li Xian said to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen had never seen Li Xian so serious. Even when he was betrayed by Jiang Hao and Su Miantu, Li Xian had only smiled and said that he would make Li Mabai pay the price. But this time, Zhou Wen felt that Li Xian was really different. "What happened?" Zhou Wen asked Li Xian. Li Xian didn't answer and only asked Zhou Wen, "If I become a devil one day, will we still be friends?" "I won't let you become a devil," Zhou Wen said seriously. Li Xian laughed. "That's right. I won't become a devil either. I'll use my own methods to change this world." Zhou Wen realized that Li Xian was really different. Ever since he returned from the birthday banquet, Li Xian had really begun cultivating seriously. Li Xian's talent was very outstanding. Although he had worked hard in the past, he often said that he needed to strike a balance between work and rest. But now, Li Xian would drag him along to practice whenever he had time. Zhou Wen could clearly sense that Li Xian was improving rapidly. Furthermore, Li Xian had condensed a life soul. This surprised Zhou Wen because Li Xian had said that he might need a few more years to condense a life soul, but he seemed to have condensed it a night ago. Furthermore, Zhou Wen felt that there was something wrong with Li Xian's life soul. Its attributes seemed to be different from his invincible Khanate divine art. However, no matter how Zhou Wen asked him, Li Xian refused to say anything. Zhou Wen continued grinding dungeons every day and pursued the weakness of the mythical creatures in the temple. However, he didn't make much progress. In the office of the Bureau's headquarters, Shen Yuqi was looking at a photo. In the photo was a person wearing stone armor. Only his side profile could be seen, and his entire body was wrapped in stone armor. It was impossible to tell what the person inside the armor looked like. "Director General, he's here." Kai Jin's voice sounded outside the door. "Bring him in." Yuchi put down the photo in his hand and said calmly. Kai Jin hurriedly brought him in. His attitude toward Yuchi became even more respectful. Kai Jin had lost all his assets in the bureau. He originally thought that he was doomed, but to his surprise, Yuchi didn't punish him. Instead, he was transferred back to the bureau and restored to his previous position and job. This made Kai Jin feel grateful and uneasy. "Old Shun, why did you look for me so urgently?" An old man wearing a primordial trapping lock followed Kai Jin in and casually sat on the chair opposite Yuchi. "I want to know who this person in the photo is." Yuchi pushed the photo toward the old man. The elder took a look at the photo before curling his lips and saying, "Although my life soul has the ability to take form, you also know that my life soul has great restrictions. It can't be used casually. It will cost my life. Find him and you'll be free," Yuchi said. The elder's eyes immediately lit up as he stared at Yuchi and asked, "Aren't you afraid that the Cape family will cause trouble for you if you let me out of heaven prison?" "I want to know who this person is," Yuchi said indifferently without answering. "All right, deal." The elder extended his hand. Yuchi nodded slightly as Kai Jin went forward and opened the primordial trapping lock on the elder. The old man's stooped body suddenly straightened, making him look a lot taller. He reached out to pick up the photo, and his eyes shined with energy. His eyes seemed to have magical power, and a magical light shot out from them and fell on the photo. As the magical beam in the elder's eyes shone, the figure in the photo seemed to come alive as though it was struggling to walk out of the photo. Yuchi and Kai Jin stared intently at the photo, waiting for the figure in the photo to walk out. Suddenly, the elder let out a tragic cry as his eyes burst open. Blood splattered everywhere on the photo and table as he covered his eyes and constantly howled. Yuchi and Kai Jin's expressions changed drastically. Inside the college, Zhou felt his sigh of the king life providence suddenly appear automatically, but it vanished in an instant. "Strange, what happened?" Zhou was somewhat alarmed, but he had no way of determining what had happened. After waiting for a while, he didn't sense any abnormalities with the sigh of the king, so Zhou continued his research. During this period of time, he had been constantly fighting the snake in the temple and had basically figured out the snake's background. Zhou still had ways to deal with the other abilities, but he couldn't crack the snake-cobra image. "Unless I can infinitely teleport or turn invisible, preventing the snake from seeing me, it's impossible to dodge that gaze. I can't infinitely teleport now, but I can think of a way to obtain an invisibility primordial energy skill." Zhou knew that there were indeed primordial energy skills that could make him invisible. However, invisibility primordial energy skills were extremely rare to begin with. There were even fewer who were willing to sell them. Therefore, even if someone sold them, they were often sold at sky-high prices. Zhou had a large number of primordial crystals on hand. He could afford them even if they were sold at sky-high prices. Most importantly, it wasn't convenient for Zhou to sell them in large quantities. Just as Zhou was worrying over this matter, and Shun contacted him and indicated that the Sunset Army wanted to buy his primordial crystals. "Why do you want primordial crystals?" Zhou asked in puzzlement. And Shun said, "Although primordial crystals and primordial gold have the effect of killing dimensional creatures, their characteristics are somewhat different. The problem involved is very simple. I'll make an inappropriate analogy. If there's only primordial gold, we can only make firearms. But if we add primordial crystals, we can make laser guns. Of course, it's not that simple, but the general direction is correct. I can give you the primordial crystals. I don't want money, but I have a request," Zhou said. "Speak. I want an invisibility primordial energy skill. It has to be at least at the epic stage," Zhou stated his request. There are too few primordial energy skills that can make you invisible. It's something that can only be chanced upon. If you only want invisibility, there's an excellent opportunity recently. There's a companion egg being auctioned in the West District. That companion beast has the ability to make people invisible. However, the price will be very high, and there will be many competitors. You have to be mentally prepared, and Shang said. What companion beast is that? Zhou asked. Mythical companion beast invisibility cloak, and Shang said. Chapter 452. Someone will sell a mythical companion egg? Zhou found it unbelievable, and Shang smiled and said, no one will naturally sell ordinary companion eggs, but this one is a little different. How is it different? Is there anything special about it? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Do you know anything about the West District's myth? Orpheism? And Shang asked. I have some understanding. I roughly know that from the beginning, there was Kronos to the god of chaos, chaos to the 12 titans, and finally, the more famous 12 Olympian gods, which is the pantheon led by Zeus. These are the few eras that represent the Orpheism. Zhou had some understanding of this pantheon. Due to the heritage of chaos, which was the chaos bead, Zhou had once read books on this topic. Although he didn't study it in depth, he had a general understanding of this pantheon. It's not easy to know this. Typically, people from the East District don't study the myths of the West District. They probably only know about the gods of Zeus. And Shang paused before continuing. The Cape family discovered a temple that might have been left behind in the mortal world by the god of dual natures, Phanes. Phanes' status is probably equivalent to Pangu in our East District pantheon. Although it's a little different, it's roughly the same. Anyway, in the myths of the West District, all the godly kings have to obtain his recognition before they can become the king of gods. The Cape family obtained the recognition of the Phanes temple and chose one of the 3 companion eggs in the temple. It's also the invisibility cloak being auctioned, and Shang said, that's not right. Since it's a companion egg being auctioned, it means that no one has hatched it. How do they know that it's the invisibility cloak? Zhou asked in puzzlement. The reason they know that it's the invisibility cloak is because the Cape family once hatched that mythical companion egg and gained the ability to turn invisible. And Shang said with a faint smile, sometimes, when humans obtain power that exceeds the rules, their hidden humanity will erupt. That member of the Cape family used the invisibility cloak's ability to do countless dirty things. In the end, he was too arrogant and even dared to touch the members of the 6 families. In the end, he was discovered by the Zhang family, and the things he did were exposed. This matter is a scandal of the 6 families. That person from the Cape family was also killed by the Zhang family. However, when he was killed, the Zhang family used some unknown method to turn the invisibility cloak back to its companion egg form. It didn't vanish with that person and has been preserved all this time. In that case, the invisibility cloak companion egg is in the hands of the Zhang family. There's no reason for the Zhang family to auction such a powerful companion egg, right? Does their family lack that bit of money? Zhou was puzzled. The Zhang family naturally doesn't lack money, but the invisibility cloak companion egg isn't a true companion egg. I wonder what means they used to turn the invisibility cloak back into an egg, but no one can hatch it again. In the beginning, no one knew that there was a problem with the invisibility cloak companion egg. The Cape family even paid a huge sum of resources to exchange for the companion egg from the Zhang family, but after getting it back, they couldn't hatch it. And Shang continued. Later, the invisibility cloak changed hands a few more times. Although there's a problem, it's a mythical companion egg after all. It also has a dreamlike invisibility ability. Everyone wants to give it a try. Everyone thinks that others can't do it, but perhaps they can, but no one can. From the 6 families to the ordinary wealthy families, it has changed hands several times, but no one has been able to hatch the invisibility cloak again. However, don't think of taking advantage of it. There are many confident people. There are also many people who want to bid for the invisibility cloak companion egg. When the time comes, the price will definitely be unimaginable. Can I use my primordial crystals to bid? Zhou asked. Of course, but it's inconvenient. How about this? I'll help you bid for the invisibility cloak companion egg. After I return, you can give me the same amount of primordial crystals at the market price. And Sheng thought for a moment and said, the price for this auction will definitely not be small. I don't know if it will exceed your expectations, so you have to come with me. If you think it's okay, I'll bid for it. If you think it's too expensive, just give up. Are we going to the West District? Zhou was somewhat worried. Don't worry. I have my own arrangements. There won't be any problems. Just treat it as a vacation. There are many famous dimensional zones in the West District where the auction will be held. You can go take a look when the time comes. And Sheng could tell that Zhou was worried. All right. Zhou was very interested in the invisibility cloak. Furthermore, he wanted to see if the dimensional zones in the West District had tiny palm symbols. If there were tiny palm symbols, it wouldn't be a bad idea to download a few and grind them. Zhou was very interested in companion beasts like angels, elves, and devils. As he was going out, Zhou had no choice but to leave the antelope and chick at Wang Lu's place. Zhou had previously given the antelope and chick some primordial crystals, but they weren't interested in them at all. Once you leave, you will owe me breakfast for the next few days, right? I'm afraid there won't be enough for lunch in the future, Wang Lu said to him. Then let's use dinner to make up for it, Zhou said. I want to lose weight. I won't eat dinner, Wang Lu said with a twitch of her lips. Although she said that, Wang Lu still took the chick. The antelope also consciously followed, even a little eager. Clearly, the food at Wang Lu's place was better than with Zhou. And Sheng personally took Zhou to the West District. Zhou heard from Sheng that the place they were going to was a peninsula that was very close to the sea. Not far from the peninsula were the islands of the Aegean Sea. There were many dimensional zones there and many terrifying existences. Are there dimensional zones that drop companion beasts like angels and elves? Zhou asked Sheng while sitting in the car. And Sheng blinked and said, elves are creatures that only exist in the North District dimensional zones. Angels belong to another pantheon. Do you think there will be? Aren't they the same zone? Zhou was somewhat astonished. He had always felt that these two-dimensional creatures belonged to the West District. Of course not. And Sheng answered with certainty. Then what companion beasts are there at the place we're going? Zhou had no choice but to ask Sheng. Monsters, giants, snakes, and the like. And Sheng gave a general explanation before saying with a smile, if you have the ability, you can also kill a god like Athena. Perhaps a companion egg will drop. It's said that Athena's temple has been discovered, but it's hard to say if the real Athena is inside. Forget about mythical creatures. Are there any more practical epic companion beasts? Zhou knew his situation. The possibility of him killing mythical creatures was too low. Now, Zhou was waiting for Tyrant Behemoth to complete its evolution. After it became a mythical creature, Zhou would truly have the ability to fight mythical creatures. Chapter 453. Zhou originally imagined that they would head directly to the auction, but he soon learned that they weren't going to the auction together, and Sheng would be traveling with someone else. To be precise, and Sheng and Zhou were just hitching a ride. The Zhang family was also participating in the auction, so Tianzhua had invited them to bring Zhou and Sheng along. It was equivalent to them being protected by the Zhang family. Isn't the family on bad terms with the six families? Why did the Zhang family agree to bring us along? Zhou found it odd. It's not just us. Even the relationship between the six families is average. The competition is even more intense than outside, but the benefits are another matter. The Zhang family has a huge need for essence gold, and we also have a need for the Zhang family. Our relationship is rather solid. However, the Zhang family seemed to want to reject it in the beginning, but for some reason, they agreed, and Sheng said. After arriving, a butler-like person received Sheng and Zhou and brought them to a private airport. Old butler, may I know who's in charge of the Zhang family this time? And Sheng asked. The Zhang family had many experts, so and Sheng wanted to find out first so that he wouldn't be rude. The one going to the Zither Sea is third master's only daughter, the old butler said. And Sheng couldn't help but be surprised when he heard that. The Zhang family had 3 brothers in the previous generation. The 3 brothers were especially good at having sons, so they had many sons. The eldest and second brothers each had 7 to 8 sons. The third brother also had 2 sons, but he only had 1 girl. The entire Zhang family only had 1 daughter. It was obvious how pampered she was. Legend had it that all the brothers of the Zhang family rushed back to celebrate third master's daughter's birthday. Each of them prepared a rare treasure. It was an extremely shocking scene. Of course, this was only a legend. Because the Zhang family only had 1 daughter, she was raised like a princess. Therefore, the protection she received from a young age could be said to be meticulous. Even now, people who were not members of the Zhang family did not know what her name was, let alone know what she looked like. And Sheng wanted to ask the old butler about the Zhang family's little princess's name, but the old butler clearly didn't want to say too much. He had already boarded the plane. And Sheng told Zhou about the Zhang family's little princess and said with a smile, "We're considered lucky today. Perhaps we'll have a chance to see that little princess's true appearance." The 2 of them boarded the plane, and the old butler brought them inside. The interior of the plane was decorated with all sorts of pink decorations, which made it look very feminine. In the cabin sat a young woman who looked to be in her 20s. She was somewhat different from the little princess he had imagined. At the very least, she was older than he had imagined. However, when Sheng and Zhou saw her face clearly, their eyes widened. "What's wrong? You don't know me anymore?" The woman looked at the 2 of them and said with a smile, "Zhang Yuji, you're from the Zhang clan?" Zhou naturally recognized her. Back when he was returning home with Sheng, Li Xian, and Alai, he had met this woman on the way and even given her a ride. "What you're saying is very strange. You've already called me Zhang Yuji. If I'm not a member of the Zhang family, can I be a member of your Zhou family?" Zhang Yuji said with a smile. Zhou wasn't good with words to begin with. He opened his mouth, unsure of how to explain. "Sit down. The plane is about to take off," Zhang Yuji said generously as she pointed to the seat beside her. "What's that?" After the plane took off, Zhou looked out the window and realized that there were many large white birds outside. They looked like immortal cranes, but they were much larger in size. Furthermore, there were quite a number of them. They flew around the plane in flocks. On careful look, Zhou realized that there was a person sitting on the back of every immortal crane. That's a sky crane companion beast unique to the Zhang family. It's a top-notch epic creature. Its flying and combat abilities are very strong, and Sheng explained. Zhou immediately understood that they were experts from the Zhang family who were protecting Zhang Yuji. Zhou looked at Zhang Yuji with an odd expression. With her status, why would she break down alone in the wilderness? As though sensing Zhou's puzzlement, Zhang Yuji said with a smile, "I had some conflict with my family last time, so I went out alone to relax. I never expected something to happen. Thankfully, I met you. Otherwise, I would have been a little afraid alone. It's no wonder. Why did the Zhang family reject us in the beginning, but later agree to bring us along? It should be because of you, right?" And Sheng said. Zhang Yuji nodded and said, "With our family's relationship with the family, it's fine to bring you along. However, my family doesn't wish for strangers to approach me, so I originally planned on rejecting it." As they were all acquaintances, Zhou and Sheng didn't care about their statuses. Instead, they had a pleasant chat with Zhang Yuji. After chatting for a while, the old butler walked over and said, "Miss, it's time for you to rest." Zhou and Sheng found it odd. What did he mean by it was time for her to rest? Zhang Yuji had been sitting on a comfortable chair and hadn't done anything. "Sorry, I need to rest for a while. If you need anything, just tell Uncle Fu." Zhang Yuji seemed to want to stay, but the old butler said that it was time for her to rest. Zhang Yuji had no choice but to stand up and say to the 2 of them. Although Zhou and Sheng found it odd, they weren't too familiar with each other, so it wasn't appropriate for them to say anything. They watched Zhang Yuji walk through the door in front of the cabin. Zhou was curious and wanted to see where Zhang Yuji was resting. Legend has it that passenger planes in the past had first-class cabins. Could it be that there's a place similar to first class on this plane? Zhou activated the Truth Listener Earring's ability to see what the place Zhang Yuji was resting looked like. He didn't have any ill intentions. The three-dimensional map of the plane immediately appeared in Zhou Wen's mind. In front of the passenger cabin was a separate cabin. Zhang Yuji pushed open the door and walked in. However, when Zhou Wen saw the situation, his expression changed slightly. The cabin wasn't big, but there were many things placed inside. The layout was very strange. There were many long strips of paper hanging inside. As Truth Listener's ability couldn't see the colors or discern the patterns, Zhou Wen only knew that they were long strips of paper. He wasn't sure if there were any drawings on the paper. However, there was no reclining chair or bed inside. Zhou Wen only saw a strange box that was round at the bottom and small at the top. No matter how Zhou Wen looked at it, the shape of the box looked like a funeral item used by humans before the dimensional storms. It can't be a coffin, right? Could it be a new type of massage equipment? As Zhou Wen thought to himself, he saw Zhang Yuji open the lid and lie down in the box. Zhou Wen could clearly see that there was no massage equipment in the box. No matter how he looked at it, it was a coffin. I just want to play games in peace. I just want to play games in peace. Chapter 454. The more Zhou Wen looked at it, the more he felt that something was amiss. The box was likely carved out of stone, but there was nothing inside. There was only a pillow that seemed to be made of stone as well. It didn't look comfortable sleeping inside. After Zhang Yuji lay inside, the old butler closed the lid again. Once the lid fell, Truth Listener's ability could no longer hear the situation inside the box. It's really strange. Are the girls from rich families also eccentric? Instead of sitting on the high-end sofa on the plane, she actually sleeps in a stone box. Zhou Wen looked like a coffin no matter how he looked at it. Zhou Wen retracted Truth Listener's ability. After all, it was her privacy, so he didn't wish to continue prying. They basically didn't encounter any accidents along the way. When they passed above some dimensional zones, the Sky Crane team outside had already shocked the dimensional creatures, preventing them from approaching the plane. Even if a few blind dimensional creatures charged over, they were finished off by the Sky Crane team. The plane didn't suffer any damage. They didn't see Zhang Yuji come out again when they arrived at the Peninsula of Gods. After the plane landed, the old butler led them off the plane. And Sheng said that he wanted to bid farewell to Zhang Yuji, but the old butler said that there was no need. They could just leave. Sheng, don't you find Zhang Yuji a little odd? Zhou Wen asked Sheng after the two of them left the airport. It's more than odd. Although the 6 families are in different regions, as hero families, they pay the most attention to etiquette. This isn't how they treat their guests. And Sheng paused before saying, however, this is the Zhang family's matter. It has nothing to do with us. There are still 2 days before the auction begins. Where do you want to go? I'll take you around. Let's go to the nearby dimensional zones. Zhou Wen thought that since he had already been here once, it would be best if he could find the tiny palm symbol and download a few dungeons back. Most of the dimensional zones on the Peninsula of Gods have owners. After all, we are outsiders. If we want to enter, it will probably be a little troublesome. Why don't we go to the Aegean Sea Islands to take a look? It's a little dangerous there, but many dimensional zones are ownerless. It's more interesting, and Sheng said. Is it good for us to go out like this? Zhou Wen knew that dimensional zones in the sea were more terrifying than those on land. It's fine. I've been there many times in the past. I'm very familiar with the route. And Sheng was filled with confidence. The two of them walked towards the harbor together. Along the way, they saw many people walking on the streets with their companion beasts. The more common ones were giants and Bigfoot. There were also many monsters. Zhou Wen even saw a person with a fireman companion beast. It looked very interesting. Didn't you say that there are no elves in the Peninsula of Gods? Then what is this? Isn't it Fire Elf? Zhou Wen asked. The sprites I'm talking about are those with pointed ears and look similar to humans. These are elemental sprites. The two aren't the same thing. I thought you wanted beautiful sprites, and Shang said. Where can I obtain such an elemental sprite? Zhou asked. This is an epic fire sprite from the Metalwork Temple. Fire sprites are very rare. The chances of a companion egg dropping are even lower. I guarded the Metalwork Temple for 2.5 years before I was lucky enough to obtain this fire sprite. If you're interested, you could try your luck. What kind of place is the Metalwork Temple? Zhou asked when he saw that the other party was very friendly. That's the temple of the god of forging, Hephaestus. Not only are there fire sprites inside, but there are also high-level fire elf kings. However, there are fewer of them. Furthermore, the depths of the temple are too dangerous. Young people like you, don't be too ambitious. Just hunt fire sprites on the first level of the temple. If you go deeper, your lives will be in danger, said the middle-aged man with the fire sprite. Thank you for your guidance. Zhou still had some impression of Hephaestus, but he couldn't remember the name. He only remembered that he was the son of Zeus, the god of craftsmanship and forging. Zhou remembered him not because of his name as a craftsman, but because he was the husband of the goddess of love and beauty. Furthermore, he was the kind of person whose head was as green as a grassland. Apart from that, the bow of the Cupid, the carriage of the sun god, and the lightning spear of Zeus were all forged by him. He could be said to be a divine artifact forging expert. And Shang seemed to have some understanding of the Metalwork Temple as he said to Zhou, 1. The Metalwork Temple doesn't only have fire elemental sprites. There are also all kinds of metal machine-type dimensional creatures. It's rather interesting. However, that's a private land of the Peninsula of Gods. Apart from residents of the Peninsula of Gods who can enter with their identity cards, outsiders are forbidden from entering. Young man, you are quite knowledgeable. You are right. Unless you are a citizen of the Peninsula of Gods, it's impossible for you to enter the Metalwork Temple. Unfortunately, you don't even have the right to obtain ordinary fire sprites. The middle-aged man left with his fire sprites smugly. Is there really no way to enter? Zhou asked Shang, who was rather interested in the Metalwork Temple. There's really no way. This is a rule set by a few families on the Peninsula of Gods. Even those families can't break this rule. Otherwise, they will become enemies with the entire Peninsula of Gods. And Shang spread out his hands, indicating that there was nothing he could do. If I can't enter, I can at least take a look from the outside, right? Zhou said. Of course, but do you really plan on taking a look? And Shang looked at Zhou in puzzlement. If it's on the way, I'll take a look. I'll take a few photos as a souvenir. After all, I've been here once. Zhou only wanted to search for the tiny palm symbol and had no intention of entering. I never expected you to have such a boring hobby. It's on the way. It's just a slight detour. And Shang continued, leading Zhou forward. Not long after, they saw white figures flying across the sky. The passers-by stopped in their tracks to watch. Zhou and Shang looked up and saw sky cranes flying over their heads. The sky cranes landed in front of them. The gray-robed Zhang family members dismounted from the sky cranes and walked straight towards them. The leader was about 27 or 28 years old. He had an imposing appearance, but he wasn't too ostentatious. He looked extremely handsome. Zhang Xiao, what's the meaning of this? And Shang clearly recognized the leader as he stared at him with a frown. Zhang Xiao said, Sorry, I have something to ask the two of you. What's the matter? And Shang asked, Have you seen my sister, Zhang Yuji, after you got off the plane? Zhang Xiao asked, Didn't she rest on the plane? We haven't seen her since then. What happened? Do you need her help? And Shang asked. Zhang Xiao sized up Shang and Zhou, as though he was confirming that they hadn't seen Zhang Yuji. Then, he bowed slightly and said, Thank you. If you see my sister in the future, please inform me as soon as possible. The Zhang family will definitely reward you handsomely. All right, if we see her, we will definitely contact you immediately, and Shang said. Zhang Xiao did not hesitate. After bidding farewell, he directly tore through the air with the people of the Sky Crane Squad. He seemed extremely anxious. From the looks of it, this little princess of the Zhang family is quite worrisome, and Shang said with a smile. As the two of them spoke, they went to the Metalwork Temple. Unfortunately, the Metalwork Temple was guarded, so Zhou could only see the door from afar. He had no way of seeing if there was a tiny palm symbol up close. Somewhat disappointed, he followed and shung to the harbor. Just as the two of them were about to rent a boat to set sail, they saw a person in a suit and a hat waving at them from a boat. "Why are you so late? I've been waiting for you for a long time." The person looked up slightly and spoke to Zhou and Sheng. When the two of them saw her face, they were immediately taken aback. The person dressed in men's clothes was actually Zhang Yuji. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.